I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is Tuesday, March 4th, and the time is 1:02 p.m. If you will all please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wonderful. Brandy, if you'll go ahead and please roll call for determination of quorum, please.
Commissioner Gameros,
Present.
Commissioner Reynolds, Commissioner Sanchez, Vice Chair Chaparro,
Present.
Chair Shaljo Hernandez.
Present. We do have quorum. The commission convenes as the Board of County Commissioners and the County Board of Finance in open session. This is a work session today. So the first agenda item on the work session is project overview / updates. And we do have our Assistant County Manager, Mr. Macias here. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. So just sharing a little bit more about the purpose of today's updates in terms of projects. The County Manager wanted us to make sure that we give you a good broad overview of all the great capital projects that we have going on across the county. For the purposes of today's presentation, the County Manager has challenged us to be efficient and practice brevity, so I think we're going to be trying to stick to 20 to 30 minutes on each topic for today. I'll do largely the presentation because I'm very familiar with many of these capital projects, with the exception of the flood update, which I'll turn over to Mr. Gwen. He doesn't want me to pretend to be a hydrologist today for some reason. So we'll move on. The first one is the Betty McKnight Food Pantry. This is in cooperation and in conjunction with Casa de Pedregrinos. It was previously cited as maybe being an independent building based on the need in the community. It is now turned into being an ad hoc facility along one of our existing community centers. You'll notice that we did get the construction documents are projected to be fully completed by later, actually next week, I should say, on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. And then from there, it goes into bid advertisement with a projected closing for mid-April, and then to be brought back to the BOCC for award, and then with the formal notice to proceed to the contractor. If you have any questions, feel free to hold them, and we'll take care of those towards the end. We have Mr. Herrera here that can answer some of those questions as well. The Bureau of Elections. This is one that I think we've all been looking forward to, and if you were looking at the clerk's social page, you'll see that she actually did a preliminary tour just last week or the week before. This one is a little bit more of a retrospective. You'll see that we are going quickly. Some of you were in attendance when we actually did the groundbreaking, so it's impressive to see how far along we've come. The inside is continuing to be roughed out. It was advertised back on March of 2024. Oh gosh, yeah, well, so we're making progress. It was awarded to ESA Construction with an estimated cost of 3.5, and we're looking to have a completion by September of this year. Feel free, this is within walking distance if you're curious and you want to see. When it gets to this point, it starts changing almost week to week, and we look forward to seeing how that continues to progress. As part of our initiatives towards sustainability and electrification of our fleet, this also will be pre-wired with some of the EV, for the EV conduit, I should say, and then in the future we can always add those electric vehicle chargers level 2 to be able to support those efforts. Next one is the OEM facility. This one may also sound familiar because you would have seen from now ACM Lopez some presentations last year rounding the bend in terms of some of our coordination with the NMSU Board of Regents. We are moving forward, and it is in the early stages of getting some major utility work in. It is approximately going to be about 17.5 thousand square feet. It has a total budget of about 13.7 because the former OEM manager really likes his data outlets and electrical outlets. All joking aside, this is actually a very specialized building and has specialized needs for rapid response and times of incidents that allow us to convene the entire community as well as the state whenever we are in the middle of a high acuity issue. It is intended to be completed, it should be, we should have an expected start by the end of March 2025, and we'll probably be coordinating a type of ribbon cutting here in the near future. All right, Commissioner or Chair Sheldra Hernandez, this one should be one that's near and dear to you. I know we've had several inquiries in terms of our slipping timeline previously in terms of rehabilitation for the Fairacre site. One of the strategies that the Facility Services Department came up with was to place some of the modular buildings on site to be able to create an operational crew. We've had various outreach from the community asking in terms of what is the timeline now. So we are able with certainty to say that by the end of the first week in April, this should be staffed. And it is going to be staffed with the standard 9-person on 3 shifts, so have 24-hour service. They will respond not only in community, but also to the nearby mutual aid and requirements that we have in the community to be able to support. I did get an update that came in as of this morning indicating that we are not going to be needing a variance in order to place these, so that should save us even a little bit more time. Here's another big one that we're talking about. Remember, this is a nearly $40 million project. This is the Santa Teresa rail crossing project, otherwise known as a grade separation. This one we've been working in conjunction, bless you. We've been working in conjunction with the US DOT Federal Railroad Administration, specifically not only the crossing reduction opportunity, but also in conjunction with Union Pacific in terms of some of the high requirements that are necessary whenever we're coordinating with a nearby rail yard. On this one, we received word just last week that the Real Estate Acquisition Management Plan, otherwise known as RAMP, was approved. This was a bit of a sticking point, and now we're able to move forward with our right-of-way acquisition that will be conducted by our Wilson and Company contractors. And if I'm not mistaken, we also received the formal award documents that ACM Lopez will be overseeing in conjunction with our Engineering and Roads Department. Jetport Runway. This should sound familiar because a couple weeks ago we just talked about how the call-out was going to go back out to the various planes in the area, that the taxiways were now open as well as the runways. This was the fortification and expansion. You can see this lovely view of the approach. This is a low approach. We're not quite showing the entire aerial view, but if you were to go out there or up in the air, you would notice that it is now fully opened, and as of later this week, they will be completing the final striping necessary on the rotor painting. We anticipate that it will be largely closed out by the end of this month, except for some back order items. We will now be coordinating in conjunction with the governor's office. In fact, Director or Manager Province was just talking with the Lieutenant Governor yesterday as they had a meeting up in Santa Fe. And the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor's office were eager to come down and have a ribbon cutting. As you all know, with the legislative sessions looking to close up by March 22nd, not barring a callback for a special session, but they should be coordinating that sometime in April. And we'll let you all know, and we'll coordinate with your individual assistants as well. We'll do that also in conjunction with the New Mexico Border Authority as well as the New Mexico Economic Development entity, and then also with the NMDOT's Aviation Division. And then we're going to be moving forward with global marketing in order to be able to garner some of the interest for the cold and dry storage potentials that are out there, as well as anything else that might come our way in the ever-shifting field of globalization. One other one that ACM Lopez wanted to make sure we included was an update on the 700 megahertz radio transition in terms of public safety. The IT is currently working with various vendors in order to program the radios for animal control as well as codes. We want everybody to be on one, the ability to hop on one channel, and also including roads in the near future. As you all may remember, fire rescue went live previously. That is giving us the ability to do a call out all the way from down in Sunland Park, all the way to Gallup. And it sounds crystal clear. And that also allows us with disaster response. In fact, this is probably somewhat tested during the Ruidoso fires, with the exception of when some of those towers went down. And if they do go down, there is the option for them to now start hopping over to cellular backup and maybe in the future even satellite, although we'll leave that expensive discussion for another day. DASO is also in collaboration with their vendor in order to prepare for the transition. And this is also one of the major items that is being discussed up in the Roundhouse and being supported by the New Mexico counties. Y'all took action to support their priorities, and among them was one of these. we thought it'd be good to go and highlight some of the other good work that we've done in the community as well. So the Vado New Horizons Phase 1 is a result of the estimated $800,000 in support that was a part of the ARPA funds that y'all voted on probably about 2 years ago, if not mistaken. As reported by Rose Garcia, the grading is complete except for a little bit of fine grading that still needs to be done. This is an aerial shot from probably last week or the week prior. And now they're working on the curb, and they've already installed some of the gas main, the sewer main, and then asphalt will be coming. So it'll start looking more like a formal subdivision. And then you'll probably start seeing some of the on-site families assembling to start working on the framing. All right, John, I promised. Come on up.
And as John's making his way up, I just wanted to state the purpose maybe of today a little bit again. Also having a new board member and being pretty new myself, we have a lot taking place, a lot of moving parts, and I thought a good overview, something in this high level every 6 to 9 months might be good for us during the work session.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Gwynn with Flood Commission. I'm going to take a little bit of a different tact here in some of our projects. So what you see in front of you is a spreadsheet that how we track our projects. We update this every couple of months. And so this spreadsheet is strictly for our capital projects. And it shows what stages they're in, whether they're in planning or design or construction. And different colors mean different things. The green actually means that the projects are completed. And these are projects that started in about 2017 up till now. I really want to highlight what's on the second page. At the bottom of the second page, you'll see there's a total of 24 existing capital projects worth about $54 million that we're working on. We have 15 that we've completed. I'm sorry, we have 9 that we've completed for about $15 million since 2017. So we're making a lot of progress. We have a lot of things going. This is not an all-inclusive list. It's a good list, but it's a constantly moving, changing list as things happen. And I don't want to go into a whole lot of detail because we don't have a whole lot of time. Are there any questions about anything in particular, a particular area? Because these are broken down into specific areas.
Commissioners, any questions? Seem to be off the hook, sir. Go ahead.
Well, not yet. We got one more thing.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question.
Of course.
Thank
Vice Chair.
you. Good
Here.
morning, John. How are you? Or good afternoon.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
John, regarding the Dragonfly Channel property and design, I'm reading here that the construction the design will be done by April 2025.
The design is completely done of the channel, all the way through Phase 5. But you'll notice that Phase 5 is not on there yet, partially because we're still looking for funding. So currently under construction, we have phases 1, 2A, and 2B, worth approximately about $12 million, just roughly. So 2 contractors are on site currently doing that work.
So how much money are we requiring to finish this?
So the total amount for that project from the engineer's estimate a couple of years ago was about $30 million.
Thank you.
We have about $13 million that we've already acquired. It looks like we're getting some more from the Water Trust Board this year, which will fund another phase, which should get us out to Phase 4. And we'll just keep going year after year. I think this will probably go for another 2 to 3 years is the way it looks.
So last question to you, and I don't need an exact number, but an estimate of how many houses will be saved by this project and how many acres of land will be saved?
This is a great question, actually. We've been looking at that too. It's at least, our last count was about 1,800 homes. There are a lot of other projects coming that will actually feed into this as the East Mesa area grows. So if you look on that same sheet, you'll see the East Mesa projects. Those projects will eventually feed into this channel, and there's lots of other projects. There's a total, I believe, of about 150 million projects planned for the East Mesa.
Thank you.
Okay, and those are, all these plans that we're looking at are all based on on our master drainage plans. So all those are public, they're out there where they can be seen. If anyone has any questions, I'm ready and willing to go over those too.
And regarding residential areas, this is probably the fastest growing in the county. Am I correct on that?
It is, there is a potential that Sunland Park and Santa Teresa in that area could be growing relatively quickly too with the new Alta Mesa subdivision that's going. That'll be years in the development though. The other growing area that we're also looking at is the Chaparral area. So a couple years ago, we refreshed our master drainage plan for the Chaparral area, and now we've already started projects in that area too.
And I understand we're looking into the future 5, 10 years regarding Santa Teresa and
Right.
the Sunland Park area. But at this time, the ability of the county to help the housing is in the east part of the county, which at least in
is.
my mind is the fastest growing.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so here what you have is a video of Vado. So I'm going to end this whole presentation with just videos. So this is the Vado project, Lily Pond. We just completed this in October. It's about a $2 million project. Half of it was funded by ARPA, the other half by the Flood Commission funds. It includes this big pond plus about 2,000 linear feet of storm drain. So nice project, helps a lot of the Vado area. This is the Abeta Pond that you've all heard about. So this is a large pond that receives water from lots of different sources. The size of it is pretty big. If you look at the vehicle in there, it kind of gives you an idea of scale. But this is the last project on the downstream side of Doña. Here are two other ponds that are just upstream of this. These were completed in the last 3 years. Part of those were done by the Flood Commission and some by Colonias. And then here we're turning up the Elks Channel, which just received substantial completion in the last month. This will go all the way up close to, if you know the area very well, close to the fluorescent sign company. And then from there, we have another phase of the project that we're still looking for funding that'll go all the way to Blymeyer. Here's the Dragonfly project. This is a big project. This is moving very fast. The section I'm covering is about a 2-mile section. This is phase 2A and 2B. As I said, it's about an $8 million project. Those horizontal lines that you see in the bottom of the channel, those are grade control structures. From the start of this project to the end, it's about 5 miles, and it drops in elevation over 700 feet. So those grade control structures are used to slow the water down and keep it moving without it causing erosion. So again, you can see a lot of the scale based on the size of the equipment and vehicles out here. We're approaching Holman Road here in just a second, and then it'll stop. At Holman Road, we've already got the bypass in, and the next phase, phase 1, is going to be the actual Holman Road crossing. So quite a few box culverts all put in place, and I believe that goes into effect this week. So we're moving. And with that, I stand for any other questions.
Thank you very much. I love the videos, John. Thank you for that. Commissioners, any comments or questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, of course.
John, I'd just like to congratulate you and your staff, just even looking at the aerial view of the Dragonfly. What a huge undertaking. And I know it's taken a lot of math and calculations
Yes,
from you. And so excellent job, sir. Excellent job. Thank you.
thank you very much. We appreciate it. It's kind of like herding cats when you've got so many contractors going all at once, but I've got a good staff.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Macias? No questions? I'm glad to get the updates. I really did appreciate your work on that, and it was great to see where everything is. And there are some really exciting projects up, so I'm really grateful to see them happening. And yeah, I'm just glad to see it put on paper and showing everyone that's joining us online where we're at on some of these big projects that we've been advocating for.
Chair and Commissioners, you're welcome. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the efforts of the likes of Facility Services and all the other staff that are out there making this happen day in and day out. So thank you for your support, and thank you for funding these projects.
Of course. Commissioners, anything else? Nope. Perfect. Thank you, sir. Moving on, we will go to number 2, which is our illegal dumping presentation.
Okay, I promise I'm not going to hog the mic, Chair and Commissioners. We're going to turn this over to Ms. Ainsworth or Director Ainsworth for further discussion, but I did want to add some context. As y'all saw, we are making great strides in our capital outlay projects and in our capital projects in general. I'd like to remind that depending on who you ask, the county is spread out over 3,814 square miles or 3,804, depending on what map you look. That is a massive amount of area. And I think that narrative plays into what we're able to get right and where we are looking for opportunities to enhance our efficiency or maybe our future needs, because a lot of that land mass is across public lands. And you'll learn in the next presentation that limits our ability to do some level of enforcement. It also is difficult in terms of actual surveillance. And when I'm talking about surveillance, we're talking about there are people in our community that for whatever reason, either out of convenience or out of lack of means, choose to go and discard waste in some of the public lands. And we might not find out about it until months later, and by that time it's become an issue. And so to that point, Christine will talk a little bit more about that, but we've also have invited some community advocates that have been working hard at trying to address some of these issues. And they've also been, depending on the day, our biggest cheerleaders, and in other days, maybe some of our great supporters for improvement as well. And so they'll be here to kind of share with you their journey as well and how we can amplify their efforts over in Chaparral. So Ms. Ainsworth.
Welcome, Ms. Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so I have a brief presentation just to provide an overview of the illegal dumping programs that we manage in my department, as well as the challenges that we face. And just to add a little bit to what Jonathan was saying, just to provide the context, this is a very sizable county. About 100 square miles are in incorporated areas. The rest is unincorporated. 75% of the land is owned by the federal government, and that's a lot of it is BLM, some of it is Department of Defense, but the areas that are owned by the Bureau of Land Management are very enticing for people when they're looking for places to dump, because there's no local ownership. They're usually out in areas where it's pretty vacant and rural, and no one will see them out there. And it becomes appealing. It's convenient to just leave it on a public piece of property where they know an owner is not going to come after them. Populations are concentrated primarily along the Rio Grande and US 70 corridors. We do have, as of the last estimate in 2023, a little over 225,000 people living in the county. 47% of those live in colonias or rural areas. We do have 38 unincorporated communities or colonias. So that gives you kind of an idea of the challenges that our population face. They're out in these rural areas. They don't necessarily have curbside pickup. If they do, it might not be reliable. They have to dispose of their own waste, and they may not be near an area where they can legally dispose of it. So the county regulations that we typically rely on when we're enforcing illegal dumping, these are the ones that we typically rely on. There are others for accumulation of solid waste prohibited. That's typically for private land, where a property owner may be accumulating their own waste, or someone else dumped it on their property. And so because it's private property, we can't clean it up, but we can pursue the property owner, even if it's not their fault that waste is there. Scattering or depositing of solid waste in areas that are not approved that we rely on typically for illegal dumping, particularly if it's on a public piece of property, BLM land, land owned by the county, an arroyo, something like that. And then hazardous waste, which obviously has to be disposed of as approved by NMED. So these are just some images of what we find out there. Sometimes it's isolated areas. Sometimes people find a location that becomes convenient, and if we don't clean it up right away, others will see it and they'll think, oh, this is a great place where we can start dumping. And then more and more people go out there, it becomes out of control. We do have a couple of properties like that where it has been an extreme challenge to keep them both clean and prevent people from getting in. Once people are used to doing it, they'll go to great lengths to get in there, including cutting locks, tearing down fences, anything to access those properties. Code staff. For this very large county, we only have a few people that actually enforce these regulations. We have one lead codes officer, 4 environmental codes officers, 4 laborers, and they are assisted by 2 zoning enforcement officers. Although they enforce different codes, there are eyes out there who will inform each other when they see anything going on. And just another image, these are 2 of our laborers who are out there busy cleaning up one of these sites. You can see some of these can range from very large objects to just common household waste. We did have to buy some equipment recently because we're starting to see, in a lot of cases, construction waste, larger objects that you can't physically lift. And so we did buy a piece of equipment to assist the laborers in cleaning up some of those larger pieces of waste. So the initiatives, we do try to educate and do prevention because that's really our best approach to illegal dumping. The Illegal Dumping Partnership was established sometime around 2012, and that's a group of public agencies that come together to discuss challenges that we have, find solutions, make recommendations. There are some grants that the partnership has received from the BLM, which have assisted with some of these campaigns with the development of the Clean Up with Carlos and the Friends, which you see there on the image. They recently went to the Roundhouse for an event that they had to battle waste. It's called Breaking Bad Habits. And so we were able to showcase our characters, which the county does have a copyright for. The ACES program, which is our department participates, but it's mostly headed up by Mary Lou over in Animal Control, where they go out, they pick communities throughout the year, they go out, they do education, they knock on doors, and then they do it in conjunction with a cleanup in that community where we provide dumpsters and assist people with disposing of their waste. We have other cleanup events throughout the county, sometimes by request or sometimes because we see that some communities need more help, where residents can request the dumpsters as long as there's a public piece of property where we can put them, we will do them. And our staff is always willing to work overtime and weekends to assist with those events. We also have some funding for youth groups. Oftentimes, like football teams or other youth groups will be looking to raise funds, and they will do a cleanup at a location which we will agree on, and we will provide a sponsorship to their group. And then there are other PR and educational opportunities throughout the year that we try to always have a presence. We have swag and reading materials for people. And we always send our mascots as well so that we can engage the youth and try to spread the word that illegal dumping is not okay. So funding, we do have the waste exchange agreement with South Central Solid Waste. And that is an agreement where we receive some of the funding from the tipping fees when people take their waste to the dump. And so we use that to budget for, it does pay for 1 full-time employee and part of the salaries for 2 other employees, as well as all of their expenses that are work-related It pays for some of the illegal dumping activities that we do and other enforcement activities. The Bureau of Land Management grants, for grants 7 through 10, we received approximately $168,000, which we have used for various things, as I mentioned, including the development of the Clean Up with Carlos campaign that is very popular. The Keep New Mexico Clean and Beautiful grant, which varies year to year. Sometimes, there's some years where we've gotten a lot of money, and some years it's a little bit less, but we always apply for it. And then, of course, general fund that pays for salaries for our employees and other things that you need. So challenges, it's difficult to identify and prosecute culprits. Most of the time, when people are out there illegal dumping, they don't leave evidence, although sometimes they do. We'll find their utility bills in there, or someone will see them and they'll see their license plate and they'll report it. But in most cases, we do not know who they are, and so it's difficult to find them. The partnership, the illegal dumping partnership, can only clean up public property. So because of anti-donation regulations, we cannot go onto someone's private property and clean it up. So anything that's public land, we will go out there and our laborers will clean it up. The court system is slow and warrants are not served. So when we do end up taking somebody to court because they haven't cleaned up their property, it's usually been a long process of trying to work with them. We have the best success when those property owners are cooperative. So we will try to convince them that they need to clean up. We'll work with them. We'll give them time. In the very difficult cases where that doesn't work, then we do go to court. Usually it's a lengthy process, and it may not deter them from doing it. They might get a small fine, and then they go back to what they were doing, and then we start all over again. The cost and distance to legal disposal facilities can be cost prohibitive for some. The hours of operation are also inconvenient. Most of them are open just a few days, typically around the weekend. And so if somebody wants to dispose of something during the week, then they're not going to be able to. We also have limited staff, and also there's limited enforcement by NMED. We do try to partner with them as much as we can, but they are also limited by their staff, and being that they typically only have one person that will be working in this particular area. And so we do have some potential solutions to some. With identifying and prosecuting culprits, we do have cameras in some areas, and we could expand on that using other remote surveillance technology to try to catch people in the act, especially in areas that have become a real problem. With the court system, we can work in conjunction with the new DA and find other ways to make sure that we're getting the support that we need. The cost and distance to legal disposal facilities, an expansion of the hours, and perhaps revisiting the solid waste curbside pickup service, as well as potentially adding more collection centers. And then limited staff, expand staff, and/or add seasonal staffing. And at this time, I will stand for questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation this afternoon. It's throwing me. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Amesworth?
Mr. Chair, Christina, I had 3 questions to ask and you answered them all. So
Great.
That was a pretty thorough presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner.
so how many employees was that? Was it 9 or 10? 11? Thank you.
Not even that many. We have, well, I guess maybe, we have 9 in the codes division. The 4 laborers, they work in teams of 2, and so they go out every day and to report at dump sites and clean them up.
Okay.
The environmental codes officers are the ones who are out there enforcing violations, and so they work with property owners and try to get them to clean up their properties. The zoning enforcement officers enforce zoning violations, but they also are eyes on the street who can identify and refer other violations to the code staff.
So to me, I think that's little compared to the size that Doña covers. I think there needs to be more staff for laborers as well. How are they getting anything done just before people
It's a big
along?
challenge.
It is. And this is a really huge concern for me because there is an illegal dump site happening, or probably dump sites happening in Berino. And took a little tour and saw that dump site that's been there for many years. So, and I know 4 laborers, that's not going to cut it. So I definitely feel like we need to really look into this. That dump site, that illegal dump site is just going to expand more and more. And there's couches out there. You can see where there's construction material out there, tons of tires. It's a big mess. So, yes, I really do think we need to look into getting more staff to help out with the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Christina, how are you funded for this project right now? Is this out of your money for your department, or is there additional monies that we have available for this?
It's a combination of the general fund and the waste exchange agreement primarily. We still do have some of the funds from the BLM, which we are spending down. And of course, the New Mexico Clean and Beautiful grant that we also apply for every year.
The waste exchange agreement, that's the one with Camino Real?
Yes.
Is there another dump site that we also have an agreement with?
I think, well, that's the one I know of.
Okay, because we just renewed their contract in 2021.
Yes.
And we're collecting, is my understanding, 53 cents per ton. And they're
Yes,
doing
that's about
over
right.
500,000 tons, I think it is, a year.
Yes.
Is it possible that we could actually, according to the agreement, if I read it correctly, it says that if we agree, the 2 parties agree, us and Camino Real, we could actually, in the middle of the contract, increase the amount we collect for the dumping that they do. I'd like to see if we can explore the possibility of trying to double or triple that amount we collect per ton. Just to have a discussion with them, if somebody could do that.
Okay.
And maybe increase the budget. I also understand that I think we're collecting maybe $250,000 a year right now on average from them.
Yeah, I didn't look into how much we're collecting, but the amount that we budget to use is about $182,000 a year.
So I think we should look at them and see if there's a way we can actually collect some more money from them in the middle of the contract, get them to agree, because I know they're getting a lot more than 53 cents per ton, for what they're charging. And they are up for renewal of their permit this year. And as part of our negotiation for that, we should maybe at least ask them to possibly give us more money per ton so we can help to address this problem with more staff.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other dump sites that we should maybe be charging a fee of 25, 53 cents? Can we look into that to see
We
if
can look
maybe
into that.
the other dump sites, we could maybe charge them as well, a fee, so we can actually have more money to deal with this? And then also, do you have any kind of estimate as to how many staff you would need in order to adequately deal with this problem?
I mean, I knew you were going to ask me that, and I don't have a complete answer, but one thing I will tell you is that we have been trying to create a dedicated supervisor for that division. And we do have a vacant position right now that we've tried to reclassify. It would be great if we could have a supervisor position in addition to that vacant code officer position, just to start with. Right now, they are under the current planning division, and so they're supervised by the chief planner of current planning, which isn't necessarily a great arrangement. But when they were brought into our department, that was kind of the best fit. But it really needs to be a division in itself with their own dedicated supervisor who can keep an eye out for grants, train in the field, provide that oversight that a current planner is not able to do. So just to begin with, if we had a dedicated supervisor who could kind of assess their workload and make strategic decisions about staffing, that would be a great start.
Let me ask another question. I don't even know if it's legal for us to do it, but can we look into the possibility of giving somebody coupons to dump with for turning in somebody's illegal dumping? I mean, do we have any kind of way to do that? And how many illegal dumpers have we actually captured or charged in the last year?
I know there was a program at some point where we had vouchers for the dump sites, and I'm not sure what happened why we stopped it, but we can look into doing something like that again. I don't offhand have a number of how many we've caught, but I can get that information for you.
I think a program that actually helps us to identify people who are illegally dumping, if we can try to figure out a program like that, to make it more of a deterrent for them, and also to help to reward people that are actually helping us to stop it. I think that would, if that's something we can do, I'd like to understand that.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Sanchez, welcome, or Commissioner Sanchez, welcome. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I apologize, I was late, and so I didn't catch all of Ms. Ainsworth's presentation, but based off of the discussions that with Commissioner Gameros and Commissioner Reynolds, I did want to hopefully provide some guidance, or at least but I think Commissioner Reynolds, when you talk on the coupons, that's a program that's managed, I believe, by South Central Solid Waste Authority. And so, you know, in coordination with Doña County. So if there's going to be discussions with that, it might be best to coordinate or have discussions with the Solid Waste Authority as well as the board, so that can be something that can be coordinated. That's something that's still ongoing. But I know one of the challenges with the coupons that we see is that there's not a lot of people or places to purchase them across the county. I know if you're close to Las Cruces, you can go into the government center and purchase them through there in the utilities payment department or window. If you have utilities with the county, you can also ask that to be added to your bill, and they'll send them to you. But outside of that, I believe you're talking only a handful of places that you can purchase them, which makes it hard for people to buy them. And then for us, I think maybe to expect for people to conform and do that. The other thing I would like to note, and Ms. Ainsworth, I know as you're kind of getting your arms around this, our website still references the No Throw app, which is no longer being utilized. And so I'd like to see if we can get that corrected or updated with some information, or at least to have that removed, so that way people know where and how to report illegal dumping. I've had to, I find, honestly, one of the ways that I find within my district has been through Facebook and social media. When people are frustrated or they see it, I have to let them know either to report it, or I work with my administrative assistant to coordinate with our department to get that cleaned up. But I think as we can work on making sure the public knows how to report illegal dumping, that'll also go a long way. I think if we can continue to find ways, I think as Commissioner Gameros noted, and I think we know this is a continuing problem throughout the county. And when you have a county the size of ours, trying to keep up with it with the small staff that we have, and they do an amazing job because they're constantly jumping everywhere we ask them to. But I do believe we may need to look at how we can better coordinate and attack this, so that way we can either find those that are the violators, but also find the dump sites across the county so that they're able to be picked up. So, but thank you so much. Just wanted to at least make those notes. And, however, as well, I think our three representatives that are on the Solid Waste Authority are myself, Commissioner Gameros, and the chairman, Sheldra Hernandez, are all three on there. So we can, however we can help and support, please let us know.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions? Chair. I was looking out into space. Yes, Mr. Macias.
One other thing that I wanted to share with the chair and the commission is that, I almost got the tongue twister there, is that one of the other discussions that Ms. Ainsworth and I had, or Director Ainsworth and I had, is that you may have noticed that the state, while we love Lizzie the Lizard, Carlos Coyote, and Javi Javelina as our mascots, and we've tried to address it in terms of that same old adage of starting with the younger generation. You'd be surprised how much of that information works its way up into the household. But the state did also make probably a multi-million-dollar investment with the Breaking Bad Habits campaign. And one of the things that they have is they have coordinated events that we're going to see how we can link onto or latch onto in terms of their coordinated pickups or their cleanup events, so that whenever we have community members like in Chaparral that are coalescing around areas, that we can support them with some of the, I should say, the PPE that we have, the gloves, the bags, what have you, but also posting it statewide so that they can see we're doing our fair share here in the South as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
sorry, one question, and I don't know if this was addressed earlier and I missed since I was late, but was there any update on the pilot program that we were looking at for mandatory trash service?
I have not been involved in that project, and I don't know the status. I don't know if Jonathan has any.
Chair and Commission, I think that was paused with the transition of the former director, Mr. Peck, and there was discussion with our interim county manager. I think one of the other issues is that we recently had transition from one of the department reports and how we would be recouping that between utilities. So I think that's something we can probably look into and get an answer for, Commissioner Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Macias. And I think I'd love to be able to kind of get back and look at that, because I think that's one of the things that we see are, and I can just speak in my district, is that you generally have people that live in the colonias that either have problems getting to a waste transfer station or prefer to accumulate a large amount of waste before they take it to the transfer station. And so I'm hopeful that if we had that that program again, or at least we can look at that, I believe that might also help us with that initiative, or at least to try to reduce illegal dumping across the county. So, you know, I know we're there's a lot going on, but maybe we can maybe develop a plan to understand maybe timing, and just come and understand and communicate with us how we can, you know, not let that fall off the board completely. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, I believe we have a couple of people from the public that were invited to give comment today. I will go ahead and open up the floor for public comment, and we will give you 3 minutes to address the commission if anyone would like to.
Thank you, Chair. I believe first we'll have Dr. Woody from Chaparral.
Wonderful. Welcome, Dr. Woody.
Thank you for inviting me to come, Scott, and the commissioners. We had a meeting November 21st in Chaparral, focusing on Chaparral, and that is my only focus, is on Chaparral. I understand there's other parts of Doña and Otero, but Chaparral is a somewhat special situation because it spans 2 counties and it faces directly against El Paso County. The meeting in November was quite useful. The bottom line was that it would be useful if Doña and Otero worked together, at least in Chaparral, if not later, more broadly. And to do that, a mutual letter of understanding would need to be generated, and following that, assignment of fiscal agents, in other words, in order to proceed with receiving funding from the state or colonias, funding from the federal government. I don't think there's been any progress on that at all that I'm aware of. And I encourage the county to work with Otero to come up with a mutual letter of understanding, an agreement, so that then the fiscal agent status could be determined, and we, once the legislature finishes its session here in about a month, and we see what funding's available, that could be enhanced to especially hire more laborers and codes enforcement officers. The money has got to come from somewhere, and I think it makes a very enticing grant application to have two counties working together on this problem. As far as Ms. Ainsworth's presentation, the one thing I'd like to say is I think there's different types of dumping. There's the casual dumper throwing the beer can out. There's the person who unloads his pickup out in the desert at night. And then those are can be handled, I think, by community groups such as Ray Vasquez has organized in Chaparral, Boy Scout groups, volunteers, et cetera, and by the county sending out their laborers to clean up the bigger dump sites. And then there's the, what I call the mom and pop dumpers who are just trashing their own property, rather small scale. And that's been, I think, admirably handled by Mary Lou Ward and Jesus Fryer with the ACES program. And I was hoping very much that the ACES program could be expanded into Otero, but that's like pulling teeth. Just getting communication between Doña and Otero is like pulling teeth. Just getting them to talk to each other. And you'd be surprised how little knowledge of the corresponding employee in Otero County, how little knowledge people in Doña have of Otero and Otero have of Doña. It's just amazing. They've never introduced themselves. They've never talked to themselves. They've never shared strategies, ever.
Dr. Woody, your time has elapsed.
Okay. But let me just add one thing. I've asked Ray Vasquez also to speak. The commercial dumpers is the focus that I think the county commission needs to address.
Okay.
Those dumping thousands of tires and hundreds of truckloads of garbage.
Thank you, sir. We'll ask Ray to come up if you'd like. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Raimundo Vasquez. I've been working with Jesus since, I believe, 2015, 2016, doing the community cleanups. What we do is we get students from Chaparral High School, and we get the funds from Keep Doña Beautiful. So that's how whichever groups helps us doing the cleanups, they get that money from that grant that they have. I think if you're going to be looking at a director or a supervisor, it should be Jesus, because he's been working for a long time with this kind of project. And for things I think that he has a lot of knowledge. With that being said, that MOU it's crucial, especially there in Chaparral. We've done one cleanup that we did involve both counties. I think it was in 22 or 23, I believe it was. We said the dumps, the roll-offs at the Betty McKnight Center, that was a midpoint. And that was where we could get both counties involved. What Otero doesn't have is that they don't have the Keep Otero Beautiful, just like Doña has. They're Keep Doña Beautiful. So, in a sense, it's kind of hard to clean up on the Otero side. But Chaparral is one community. You cannot treat it as two communities. This is a problem that we have between these two counties. We are one community, and if we're going to do the cleanup, we have to do it for the whole community. So this is why it's crucial and really important to get that MOU done and get it ready so we can go out there and get our groups going and service all the community. This coming month, in April, we have two cleanups. We're going to be working with dispensaries. That's going to be on the 5th that we're going to do one, April 5th. On April 25th, we're going to have another one that we're going to be working with Jesus also. Also on the 15th of this month, we're going to have another one. So we are working. We're working hard as a community. Like I tell the people when we have our community meetings, I run the Chaparral Community Organization. What I tell them, it's, let's not rely on the government, let's do it ourselves. And this is what I'm trying to do, is getting people go out there and keep our community beautiful, have it clean, and we cannot rely on you. But we do need that MOU as soon as possible, so we can start working with both counties and really make a difference.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your comments. Any other on the, yes, we do have a book and we will get them the book. Any other public comment on the illegal dumping matter? Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner.
I do have some questions. As I was listening here, popped up in my mind.
Of course.
So, and I'm going to ask these questions since I don't know if we do have anything like that in place. So Christina, you were saying that right now, the zoning individuals for the cleanup, they're currently under the planning?
Yes, the codes team is currently under the oversight of the current planning division.
Okay, and so you're suggesting that we have a separate division for them?
Correct.
With the supervisor. So is there a, I don't know, like a policy or a plan in place for them to use, or is it something that we need to work on?
I mean, it would be basically just an administrative change within my department. There are several divisions within the Community Development Department, and it would be easy to create a division within the department with a supervisor so that they could be a division of their own.
Okay. Has there been any plan developed for illegal dumping to follow, to guide us?
We do, the Illegal Dumping Partnership meets once a month, and that's where we strategize to find solutions and look for ways to attack the problem. And so I would say, although we don't necessarily have a written strategy, we do meet regularly with our partners to make sure that we're looking at it from different angles and trying to use the best approach to curb the issue.
Okay. Do we know of any other county or municipality that's maybe has a plan or something to, like some type of strategy that's written down that we could maybe look into or maybe follow?
I mean, we could definitely look out there, but I can tell you that our Illegal Dumping Partnership and the Clean Up with Carlos campaign is actually a model in the state. We have had others who have, because we own the copyright to Clean Up with Carlos, we do have a couple agreements with people who have, other agencies that have paid us, paid the county to use those characters because it has been so successful. When we did have, when the app was still in place and when it was still updated regularly, it was actually very popular. And the state had been looking at potentially doing something statewide. And I don't know where that went. Now that technologies are different, a different approach might be more beneficial.
Okay, and I can understand why they're using that. Like Jonathan was stating earlier, you know, you're hitting the younger population right now, and they're being educated on that, and they take that home. But the problem we have right now is the generation that does have the means to drive, and they're the generation right now that's doing that dumping. You know, growing up in a household, most parents don't listen to their kids because they're the parent. And living in the community, you know, the communities that I grew up in, it's, I don't know, it's kind of tough. I guess it's just having to educate the individuals, you know, the older population. But that can be difficult to do. I know a lot of people that they don't have the means, especially the elderly, to unload heavy things or trash. There was a time that I would see in Anthony, this individual would go around to other residents driving a truck, and he would actually pick up their trash, and they would pay him. So, you know, where was he dumping that trash? I don't know. if it was out in the desert or was it in the transfer, stations or wherever he would go. So I don't know. It's a hard issue to deal with. It is. And I think, we just constant educating of these individuals. I know that if there was like the grappler in place, where people can actually put their heavy items, bigger items out into the, curb area and having something like that, I don't know how much it would cost. But, maybe looking into something like that so that way individuals aren't just going, putting it in my trunk of my car and hauling my used up couch and, the desert's right there behind my backyard and I could just drive right there and dump it in the middle of the night, When you have to go to those other places where the collection sites are, I've been there, I've gone, we use the coupons because we do have like appliances that we're getting rid of. And there's a line. So I know a lot of people don't want to sit and wait. And I've seen where vehicles are piled up with tons of trash and you see that they're going that way, but they see the line and you just see them keep on going, So where in that area are they dumping trash as well? So I don't know, I think we just kind of need to see how we can, like maybe developing some type of strategy, some type of plan. And I think if it's written, maybe it's something that we can just keep on using if it works, and if it doesn't, we change it. I don't know. I mean, I'm open to anybody's suggestions, even our residents. I'd welcome them to them. I'm sorry. I'd welcome them to come and give us, ideas and pointers that maybe we can't seem to think of. So, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And to follow that up, Ms. Ainsworth, I have the grappler come to our, county manager's my neighbor. We have the grappler come once a month, and it's so effective. It came this morning, and my neighbors had refrigerators and couches out on the street. But I think that's an excellent idea of maybe targeting different areas, different districts, and maybe starting with District 1 and targeting that area for 2 months, and then District 2 targeting that area for another 2 months, and just going down from district to district or community center or however it works to get equipment out there to pick up not only trash, but branches and leaves and things of that nature so they don't end up in the arroyo behind my house. Commissioner, that's an excellent idea. Thank you for that. Commissioners, any other comments?
Madam Vice Chair.
Commissioner Sanchez, yes.
Thank you. And agreed. I just for Commissioner Gameros, and we may have to bring you up to speed on the mandatory trash service and the pilot project we were working on and looking at. In fact, it was in your district down in La Union and the Santa Teresa area. But essentially, that was something we were looking at. The idea is that it would, very similar to what you see in the municipalities where everybody has to have a trash can. That was part of what we were looking to potentially look at doing, where and as well as setting pricing so that it would be such that those across the county would be able to pay for the service, and or we could explore options for subsidizing for low income. But the idea is that you would have a trash can. We would have the service that would come and take trash out of the trash, from the trash can, but then also having a grappler service that would come once a month through the communities, so to pick up the large items that exactly like you were talking about. So that was part of what we were looking at, but because of the transitions that we've had over the past here, I'd say in the past year, some of that was put on hold as ACM Macias was just noting. So perhaps it's something we can take a look at, because I do believe, like you're saying, when you have large items and trash that accumulates, it's hard for people to always go and take that to the transfer stations. But if we can bring the service to where they're at, I think we would potentially have more success in combating that illegal dumping in the long run. But again, like I said, that was supposed to be a pilot project to see and test out that thought, or at least that program. No. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. The chair is back. Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, of course.
Thank you. And Christina, I don't know how many laborers you need, but if I may press on the county manager to chat with you and maybe create those positions so that we can start addressing the issues. You need more than 4 people. I would say at least 20. And so if we can tweak the budget on that.
Lucio, do you hear that?
Sorry, Lucio. But if we can at least start looking at that and maybe commence this year in bringing in more laborers or supervisors, as you mentioned, Christine, I think that's a worthwhile cause. Thank you.
Chair, may I jump in, sir?
Of course.
And I think that was part of the reason to get this together today. It is a complicated, complex topic that is being fought on multi fronts, and obviously staffing is just one side of that. The community side of it is going to be a big piece too, as we try to get buy-in. And even if we were to double our team from 11 to 22, it's still going to take probably 22 churches helping us and nonprofit groups leaning in as well. So that's why we wanted to have this conversation, because it's going to be an ongoing dilemma. And I do appreciate our folks from the community that came out today. And Christina, thank you for these. And certainly we'll be talking about positions real soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we do have the agenda item for Spaceport. Who will be presenting?
My apologies. This has kind of been a tag team effort. I know Commissioner Reynolds has wanted to discuss this topic for some time, and on the staff side, Mr. Macias and Mr. Lopez have done quite a bit of research as well. I'll defer to you, Commissioner Reynolds, if you'd like to kick this off, sir.
Yes, sir. Hold on one moment.
Chair and Commission, as Commissioner Reynolds does that, I can share with you just a quick bill update from the efforts. The bill that was proposed, HB 369, has not moved out of committee. However, the other bill that was presented by Senator Brantley, although it has not had much motion either, its twin bill or complementing bill known as HB 261 has been gaining motion and is anticipated to go on to the House floor soon. If you remember, that is the one that gives Spaceport the ability to confer with the State Treasurer's Office. There was an amendment on that bill, HB 261, that said instead of the State Investment Committee, it just be the State Treasurer. So that's the latest on our end in terms of bill tracking.
Thank you, sir.
And Chair and Commission, as requested at the last meeting, we did reach out to the Las Cruces Public School Districts. Superintendent Ignacio Ruiz was not able to come, perhaps at a future meeting, but Spaceport America was able to send some designees that are in the audience today.
Okay, perfect.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Yeah, thank you. You'll notice that the first slide up here is actually the presentation, so I'm going to start going through that, because originally the spaceport was actually created through legislation. That was the New Mexico State Statute 5831 passes the Spaceport Regional Tax District Act, and that was around 2006. And the laws concerning it was actually for the Spaceport Regional Tax District Board, actually falls under 5-16-1. Doña County for the Spaceport Regional Tax District in 2007 when we formed it. And it was a resolution 2007-21 authorizing an ordinance 2007-07, and was placed on the ballot and actually had to pass in the county. And here in the county of Doña County, it failed the first time, but the second time it passed by 300 votes. Similar thing happened in Sierra County. They passed the ballot as well about the same time. This was actually the ballot that was actually used to form the Spaceport Regional Tax District Board, and also to set the amount for the GRT tax at 25%. The Spaceport Regional Tax requested the Spaceport Authority bonds in 2009 and 2010 to the tune of $70 million total in funding for the capital improvement projects, specifically Virgin Galactic's facility and the Spaceport Operations Center. In an announcement that we have in the first document that I provided you guys from the way back machine, it actually states that the completion of the construction for the spaceport was supposed to be done by 2010. It also states about halfway through the second page that it was going to generate over $1 billion in revenue in the first 5 years and create more than 2,800 jobs in that same period of time. So that's what our expectations were when we signed up for this. And so the first bond was issued at $58 million in 2009, and the second bond was issued for $22 million in 2010. So the Spaceport Regional Tax District requested the Spaceport Authority issue the bonds in 2021 in order to capture the remaining balance on the 2009-2010 bonds. At the time, when I joined the board 6 years ago, I didn't know that we had a $13 million balloon payment that was also part of the bond payoff. So the funding that was actually secured for the bonds in 2009, 2010 did not include enough funding in order to cover the $13 million balloon payment. So by actually capturing the balloon payment and including it in the 2021 bonds, reducing the interest rate, we were able to save over $8 million in interest cost by refinancing the bonds in 2021. This was a great thing, and we all agreed on that. This actually shows you the next slide here, the 2021 repayment schedule, shows you actually what the repayment schedule is. And then we're looking at the term between July 1st in 2023 and January the 31st, 2024, where you can see that it shows the total that was been actually paid in that year was about, or that 6 months was about $3,250,000. But it also shows that the balance of the bonds that were secured at about $42 million is now down to $26 million. This is just for reference. And this actually shows you the payment schedule on the next sheet. And it shows that we're actually collecting and depositing about $385,000 a month. The interest earned on that is $4,861, but you'll also notice about halfway down that we're paying a debt service of $100,000 about every 6 months for New Mexico Finance Authority to carry this for us. And that just shows some the way it's been done. Something else that's interesting here is over the last almost 17 years now, this county has actually contributed over $147,000, or $147 million, sorry, to pay off these bonds. It's my opinion that with $120 million, $147 million, some of the things we're struggling with here, infrastructure, internet, sewer systems, transportation, healthcare, both mental and general health, food deserts, and even having a prepared workforce. So I believe we could have used this money that we thought was going to generate $1 billion in 5 years for pretty good purposes here in the county as well. This shows you, this is actually the term that we, from 2009 on this sheet, shows you from 2009 to 2023, here's where the $147 million was actually spent. It shows that $116 million went to the fund to pay the bonds, $30 million went to the schools, and we pledged $78 million actually to the bonds, but the other was reserve. You look over on the far right side at Sierra County, you'll notice that Sierra County actually over the same period of time only contributed $5,746,000. So when I look at the economic impact study that was done by the New Mexico State University in 2022, according to that, the tenant employment jobs for the county, Doña County had 152 jobs. Sierra County had 229 jobs for a total of 381 jobs. And they also had 6,731 visitors. And the 6,731 visitors were actually counted to have spent about $310 per day, or roughly $2.1 million. And it shows here that those are only the ones that are in Doña County. So when you calculate this out, if we take the direct employment was $12 million, we take the indirect of 1.797, and then the induced is 2,027,000. It comes out to $16,242,000 impact on Doña County for that year. Now, there's some other numbers over here where it talks about the value added and the total output, and I'm going to include those on the next page. So when you look at the direct labor contributed to Doña County is 16.2 million. You look at the visitor days, the 2.1 million, comes up to a total of 18.3 million. You break that down into different tax districts of the county, and you'll see the state actually collects $897,000. Doña County collects only $297,000, and the Spaceport GRT tax collects $45,000 that year, if I'm using the numbers from the Spaceport Board in New Mexico State. Las Cruces, at a higher interest rate, gets $583,000, and because there was lodging associated with the visitors, they also get another $915,000. So the number, the first column there shows the number if we use the 18.3 million, but if we use the 46.68 million, which is the total amount impact that they had on the county, and we bring that down and take the Doña County tax from it, we still only get $116,000 from the input of the impact of Spaceport on Doña County tax toward the GRT tax that we're using to provide funding for the Spaceport bonds. Something else that's relevant here is the pledged revenue from the fiscal year immediately preceding the closing date were equal to or exceeded on an ongoing basis during each year of the bonds outstanding are reasonably expected to be 125%. So the only reserve that's required for the bonds and for the New Mexico Finance Authority is that we keep enough to have 125% required in order to cover the bonds for a year. So that's pursuant to 2021-2 adopted in March 2024. We actually pledged 75% of the revenues of the county GRT tax as pledged revenues, okay, for the payment of the authority's taxable gross receipts tax refunding revenue bonds. So in 2021, when we did the bonds in Section 2, we actually obligated the whole 75% or committed the whole 75% to actually paying off the bonds only. And here's the actual section that says that from the 2021 bond approval by the Spaceport Regional Tax District Board. And it says here that the district hereby pledges in its regional Spaceport gross receipts tax revenue authorized to be pledged to payment of the bonds, including 75% of the Doña County and Sierra County Regional Spaceport Spaceport gross receipts taxes. And 25% still goes to the school. All right, if we look, I actually applied and talked to the New Mexico Finance Authority about reducing the 25%, and they said we couldn't do that without approval of Spaceport Authority. So we're still with that, we won't change that. Okay, could you bring up the next one? The next one is the Spaceport questions and answers. Do I have control of this? Spaceport. Look at the changes. HB 36 changes. Okay. In this one, you'll notice that I've actually identified the areas that were to explain some of the questions you guys have. The referendum was only required to form the organization and set the 0.25% on the taxes at the time. So that's not something I'm trying to change in my bill. What I am trying to change, though, is the tax imposed is only on the bonds issued pursuant to the regional tax district are fully discharged or otherwise provided for in full. So I'd like to have 75% rather than keep it in reserve to go ahead and pay it off in advance. I'm sorry, do you have a question?
Vice Chair.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Reynolds, would you repeat that? I think I lost you halfway through it.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
The questions we had in the meeting the other day was, do we have to have a referendum if we want to change anything on the tax or on the board? And the referendum was actually to create the organization and actually approve the 0.25% on the bonds for the GRT tax to pay the bonds. So no, that's not changing in the House bill that I've proposed. Okay, so we won't need that. The proposed changes that I have are that the tax shall be imposed only until the bonds issued pursuant to the Regional Spaceport District Act are fully discharged or otherwise provided in full. Now, pretty much that's what the New Mexico State Statute 7-20E-25 Section A already says. Okay, it's just that I'm going to allow them to discharge the bonds at that time once they're fully paid. This next section, Section B, we shall dedicate a minimum of 75% of the proceeds of the revenue to the Regional Spaceport District for repayment of the principal and interest of the bonds issued under the Spaceport District Act for the payment of the principal and interest of the bonds issued under the Spaceport District Act for paying off the bonds. The reason for this is because right now there's a belief by the Spaceport Tax District Board that the extra revenue that we collect that's in reserve can actually be used for specific projects. But when you look at 5-16.7, it says that specifically a district may enter into contracts with the authority pursuant to which the authority may issue bonds under the Spaceport Development Act. So the only contract we can enter into is to get bonds to provide funding to the spaceport so that they can take the money from the bonds and then finance projects, planning, designing, engineering. There is no authority in any statute that I see that allows us to take the reserve money and give it directly to the spaceport to allow them to use it specifically for projects. The only one that covers that is, like I said, 5-16.7, and it says the money may only be used to secure bonds. So next page. So how is the bond money used? It says that in 5-16.7, as I just stated, that they also only can do it to use it for bonds. The tax may not be used to pay for specific projects unless you look at NMSA 5-1610. And 5-1610 provides cooperative powers. Under that section, we can use the money for something else, but we can accept legitimate contributions or liens securing obligations of the district from the person with respect to financing, planning, designing, and engineering exactly. But we have to get a contract establishing repayment terms, meaning basically we have an alternate method of investing the money, but we can't just give it to the spaceport to do projects. If they want to do projects, we can loan the money to the spaceport in terms of repayment with interest. Also, Section B says we can also enter into contracts for the financing, planning, designing, and engineering and construction. Again, but we have to expect some sort of return on the money. So I can't just give them the money and say, here, go forth and make something happen. And we can also enter into joint contracts with the authority concerning the financing, planning, and construction, but each time with the cooperative powers. This is something that is a contract where they actually take the money, use it, and then return money back to the spaceport. So this is something that I've asked the Spaceport Authority for the last 6 years. And that is, show me plan where you have a sustainable model. If we just give them the money and they use it for projects, that's not a sustainable model for us or for the spaceport. Number 4, the County Regional Spaceport Gross Receipts Tax Authority to impose a rate election required. So some of the changes there is I want the tax shall be imposed only until the bonds are issued and discharged when fully done, which I mentioned already. Payment of principal of interest for the act goes directly to the bonds. And payment of principal of bonds under the Spaceport Development Act purposes according to what the provisions of the Regional Spaceport District Act require. This is Section C of 25. Section E is the County Regional Spaceport Gross Receipts Tax imposed pursuant to this section shall be repealed and no longer imposed once the bonds to which the tax revenue is dedicated are fully discharged. The last section I think is important is the authority 55831-9, authority revenue bonds limitations. The authority shall pledge irrevocably a minimum of 75% to pay off the interest in the bonds until it's done. Something else that we talked about, and I don't have it in this document with me, and that is in the document I provided to the board the other day, is since we have contributed roughly $147 million toward paying off the bonds, and Sierra County's contributed roughly $6 million, and the state has contributed $0 to paying off the bonds. We have an imbalance on the board such that we have taxation without representation, in my opinion, because we have 220,000 people who are paying taxes toward these bonds, and there's 12,000 people in Sierra County. We have 2 votes. They have 2 votes in Sierra County, and the state have 2 votes, but yet they're not contributing enough to the GRT tax to actually cover the influence that they have on the money that's being and how it's being spent. So one of my questions is, and one of my requests is, if you look at some of the changes in the real bill that I have in front of you, on the second page, or excuse me, top of the third page, second and top of the third page, I would like to actually solve the problem of not having enough representation by actually having the board members made up of 1 director for every $1 million that's contributed to the GRT tax by the organization. So that means that if that's the case, then we could get as much as limited to 4. We could get 4 seats. Sierra County, for every million, they could have a seat. The state, for every million, they could have a seat. Right now, the only requirement for the state, if they are a member, is that they are required to have at least 1 board member, and that's it. The current formation document for the Spaceport Regional Tax District allows the state to have 2 seats, but that's just based on what was written up in the formation document. The other 2 seats, the county seat from Sierra County and the county seat from Doña County, are both in the 7-20E-25, and that's the section I want to change. The next section is section 2 on page 4. In that section, the bonds, I simply am trying to say that Spaceport, okay, the district may enter into contracts with the authority pursuant to which the authority may issue bonds, as I've said before, under the Spaceport Development Act for the purpose of financing and planning, designing, engineering, and construction. Provided, and I want to add a section that says, provided that the district shall not enter into a contract with the authority, and bonds shall not be issued without a referendum being passed in accordance with the election code by all governmental unit members of the district. So if in fact we want to issue new bonds, I would like for the citizens to be involved again and vote again to decide that we want to continue to invest in this project, which I think is fair. So any new bonds would require a vote by the public, a referendum. In the bottom of page 5, under 7-20E-25, I've actually asked that the tax shall be imposed only until the bonds pursuant to the regional tax district are fully discharged or otherwise provided in full. In section B of 7-20E-25, I've added that the governing body at the time of enacting an ordinance imposing a tax authorized in subsection A of the section shall dedicate a minimum of 75% of the proceeds of the revenue to the regional spaceport district for payment of the principal and interest of bonds issued under the Spaceport Development Act. And because that's what it basically says, except I'm going to guarantee we use all 75% rather than keeping reserve. That eliminates the need for reserve, and we can pay the bonds off earlier, saving many, many more millions in interest. In section D, on page 7, the governing body of the county imposing county regional spaceport gross receipts tax shall transfer a minimum of 75% of all proceeds from the tax to the Regional Spaceport District for which it is a member for the payment of the principal and interest of bonds issued under the Spaceport Development Act, and for the purposes in accordance with the provisions of the Regional Spaceport District Act. So basically, this just says we transfer the money, which is what we're doing already. Section E, a county regional spaceport gross receipts tax imposed pursuant to this section shall be repealed and no longer imposed once the bonds to which the tax revenue is dedicated are fully discharged or otherwise provided in full, which I mentioned. The next section 4 is for 5831.9, which are the authority, revenue bonds, limitations, and dedication. I've added section D, which says that the authority shall pledge irrevocably a minimum of 75% of the proceeds of the revenue received from a county regional spaceport gross receipts tax to the payment of the principal and interest of the bonds issued for the financing, planning, designing, engineering, and construction of the spaceport. And basically, that's mostly all I have at this point, unless there's questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Of course. You got that, commissioners?
That was fast, Commissioner Reynolds. I struggled to keep up, but thank you for the reading materials. They're come in handy. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, of course, Commissioner.
so just to educate me, the spaceport is currently in Sierra County, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so why and how did the county get into a 75% and the other county got into a 25% and the state 0?
May I answer that question? I think you've misunderstood one thing. We both collect 0.25% GRT tax on all sales, or most all the sales in each county. And from that revenue that's collected, 75% is dedicated to paying bonds. The other 25% is we're allowed to use it for other purposes that support the spaceport, goals and strategies. So the 75% is the same for both Sierra County and ours. The only difference is that we have 230,000 residents and they have 12,000 residents. Their GRT tax amounts to less than 5% of what our GRT tax generates. That's really the only difference. Okay.
Okay, and so that 75% that it's to pay our bonds, and like you said, I think to me there's I don't understand how our residents are having to pay this tax on something that's in Sierra County.
Okay, let me take you back a couple of weeks. Like I think some people know this already, but in 2006, when this was all first being discussed, 2005, 2006, it was put out there for any counties or any cities or any communities that wanted to be a part of the Spaceport Regional Tax District Board could join. As a matter of fact, it was presented to Otero County, it was presented to Socorro County, to Lincoln County, to Deming, to Las Cruces, and Sierra County. And the only two counties that were willing to do it were Sierra County, partly because the original plan was to put the spaceport northeast of Las Cruces, kind of on the border of Sierra County and Doña County. But once it was approved, the spaceport was actually moved a little farther north and a little farther west into Sierra County. So the reason it wasn't approved and supported until the 25% was actually designated for the schools. And then they were able to get enough votes to do it. And as I mentioned earlier, it originally only passed by 300 votes in this county. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you for educating me. I was just wondering how we got involved in that partnership with Sierra County. Thank you for the education and the history on that.
I think the best way to sum up why we got involved is the governor's comment that says that a business plan prepared by the New Mexico State College of Business for the State Economic Development Department predicts that the overall economic impact of the spaceport operations could be about $1 billion over the first 5 years, and more than 2,800 jobs could be created in that same amount of time. So in the first 5 years, we should be getting $1 billion based on our investment is what we expected, and that's why it passed, which is, if that was fact, that'd be great. It'd be a great investment.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
I thank you for this, the documentation, and yes, it would have been nice if you just slowed it down a little bit.
Sorry about that.
And I know I'll get carried away as well, and I'm going to speak really fast. I do speak pretty fast. Just going over this, I support this.
Okay.
And I thank you for that.
Nothing's changed for the school. They still get their 25%, and we've got all the schools listed in our resolution to show which schools get it, which schools districts get it, as long as we're paying the bonds.
Yes, I just think it needs to be fair on our part as well. So changing the amount of members on that board would be reasonable to me. I thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions?
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Vice Chair.
I do have comments, and maybe it's something that we can speak to Spaceport Executive Director, whether it be now or at a later time. But I became aware that we lost the Space Cup, and not through Spaceport, but through an attorney with whom I work in Midland, who sent to me the announcement that Doña County had lost the Space Cup to Midland, and I wasn't aware because there was not any communication from Spaceport. And also, and this may not be the appropriate time, but I'd like to know how many projects Virgin Galactic has in the future, because they've pretty much pulled out. They've fired a lot of their employees, from what I understand. That's what I'm understanding, so maybe clarification in the future. How many of the employees have been pulled out of Doña County? I'd also like to know how far along Spaceport is on the master plan, and how much money has been spent on that, and if it's due to be, the master plan due to be completed soon, or are we looking a year from now? I'd also like to know how many projects are being brought in the next maybe year, and how much money will be brought in through those projects to Doña County regarding taxes, homes sold, employees being hired. So if that can be answered, I would really appreciate it. Because I know I went to one of the Space Cups, Scott, and it was so wonderful. There were students from all over the world. And I know that they were staying in Las Cruces and also Sierra County, but we've lost that. And so I don't know the impact, the economic impact to Doña County because of loss of the Space Cup. I met with students from Mexico, from Europe, and to me that was such a great thing to have in this county, bringing different cultures, different languages, knowledge of this area to other parts of the world, and now it's gone to Midland, and I don't know what Midland is offering that Las Cruces can't offer besides more hotel rooms, but they certainly don't have the space, and they certainly don't have the engineering talent for an NMSU that we have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. She asked a lot of great questions. At this time, we do have the Executive Director, I believe. If you would like to come and address the commission, you are more than welcome to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and Scott. My name is Scott Andrew McLaughlin. Nice to meet you. I haven't met you in person. If I can, I'll just answer a bunch of questions kind of randomly because I didn't know exactly how today we go. And I'd be happy to prepare something more detailed, especially given Commissioner Reynolds' details. It's kind of hard to respond to those without doing some more research. So I'd be happy to come back, but I could at least run down some things real quick if that's okay. Mr. Chair. So one thing I want to mention is when you look at the spaceport, I don't know if people realize how far back sanitary goes, but it actually goes back to 1993. And if you look at what happened with sanitary, it took a long time and people had to be patient. And so I will ask you guys to be a little patient, a little longer, although we're making really good headway in the last couple of years. And I will talk about that in more detail in the future. You just let me know when to come up. And again, these are kind of random, so I apologize. I was just kind of taking notes, so I'll get to the cup here in a minute. So Virgin Galactic did cut back, but they're building 2 new spaceships, and they're going to bring back those 2 spaceships later this year, and they will begin flying twice a year. And that's supposed to come up to 125 flights a year. The new spaceships carry 6 people at a time. So that winds up with 750 new astronauts a year. What Virgin Galactic has found, is that for every person who goes to space, you get about 10 to 20 people who come along, their friends and family. So what that means is about 15,000 unique visitors to Las Cruces and the surrounding area every year. And those 15,000 people, if you calculate the room nights, that could be as much as 90,000 room nights a year. And they're going to visit Santa Fe, they're going to go to Carlsbad, they're going to go to White Sands National Park. But that's the initial calculation if you just do the basic math. Now we know VG has been slow getting there, but they're still pursuing. They're still there. They're building their spaceships in Mesa, Arizona. You can go to the YouTube channel. You can see the parts. These are not graphic parts. These are the parts for the spaceship being built and being assembled, and they'll bring them here later this year. Let's see a few other things. The refinancing, Commissioner Reynolds did a good job talking about the refinancing. I want to point out that the interest rate is 0.8%. So when we refinanced, and it was not the tax district that refinanced, it was New Mexico Spaceport Authority that did all the work, took about 18 months of work, a lot of lawyers, a lot of people involved. We got an interest rate of 0.8%, and we saved the taxpayer about $8 million. So I think that's a really good rate, especially considering where we are right now. I'm not so sure it's a good thing to pay off a loan when you have that good of an interest rate, but we'll see. The economic impact, the 2022 economic impact that Commissioner Reynolds is talking about, we're working on 2023 and 2024. So in 2023, Virgin Galactic that's when they went to space the most. So we expect a big jump up in those numbers. The numbers were 811 jobs that were direct, indirect, and induced in the county, in both counties, and about $60 million of brand new money that came into the area. So we expect those numbers to go up for 2023. They'll probably go down a little bit for 2024, but they should be going up substantially in 2026 and 2027 and beyond. I think by 2030, we'll probably be seeing something on the order of 1,500 jobs that are due to the spaceport. And something on the order of $100 million a year of new money that comes into the area. So it's quite significant. And we are signing up some new customers. We're going to announce a data server farm later this year, and actually hopefully in the next few weeks. I will point out that the economic impact used a model called M-Plan. M-Plan unfortunately assigns where the employees live. It kind of skews it to the fact that the spaceport is located in Sierra County. So it makes the M-Plan results that Commissioner Reynolds showed are something we're dealing with when we talk to New Mexico State, the Center for Border Economic Development. They're working on that to try and show the fact that actually about 90% of the people associated with the spaceport live in Doña County. They don't live in Sierra County. So what is actually happening economic-wise is that Sierra County gets the benefit of the GRT taxes from the construction because the spaceport is located in Sierra County. But Doña County is getting the benefit, all the people living in Las Cruces and Doña from the housing, from the salaries, from the food, from the restaurants. Most of the people are electing to live in Las Cruces, not in Truth or Consequences. So the folks at CBED are working to try and do a better job of accurately portraying that. But that's just kind of the way the M-Plan model works and when they do these models. So again, I expect those numbers to go up in 2026 and keep going up. Do you have a question, Mr. Chair?
I have several thoughts, but I'll
Okay. Okay. I will point out that as far as I can read HB 396, all the money has to go to paying off the bond, which means the 25% of the 0.25% would not go to the schools anymore. They would not go to the Challenger Learning Center. So that cuts out about 3,000 students out of the activities they've been participating in year to year with that tax. The other thing I want to point out, when we talk about the money, the way Commissioner Reynolds talks about the money, he talks about it in terms of it being money of Doña County. This is Doña County's money. This is Doña County. It's not Doña County money. The money, what was voted on was a per capita tax that applies evenly to all the citizens of Doña County and Sierra County. So if you aggregate what the county, what's collected in the county, yes, it's a much higher number than in Sierra County, but what every one of us is paying on that tax is the same. It's the same percent. And it was never going to be Doña County's money. You can't, when Commissioner Reynolds talks about spending it on other things, that was never possible. The creation of the spaceport and the creation of the spaceport district and the referendum that allowed for the tax was purely to support the spaceport. It only goes through Doña County as a political body simply to get it to the tax district. So I've always thought that the way Commissioner Reynolds talks about it in terms of Doña County versus Sierra County is a strange beast. Both counties and everybody in both counties benefits from the spaceport in terms of the increased jobs, the revenue coming in, the fact that maybe somebody's kids here will be able to stay here instead of going out of state like I did. So it's important to think about it on a per capita basis, not on a county basis. The other thing to, okay, well, I lost my place here. The other thing to understand about the counties is that when the spaceport was created, when Governor Richardson made the handshake deal with Sir Richard Branson, everybody should understand that the creation of the spaceport goes back into the 90s. This is when everybody started researching in detail how to put a spaceport in southern New Mexico. And we were ready for that. We had done all of the homework. We had already picked the site. I've never heard the story that Commissioner Reynolds said that somehow the location of the spaceport was moved. I've never heard that. Maybe that happened, but I never heard it. The location of the spaceport is on 18,000 acres of contiguous state trust land. And that had always been the location when you go back and look at that. And that goes back to the studies in the 90s about where we can put a spaceport. And the beauty of that location is it's under restricted airspace for White Sands Missile Range. And that allows us to do some pretty incredible things that no other spaceport in the country can do. None of the newer commercial spaceports. And that's part of the reason we can have Virgin Galactic here is because when they fly, we're under the restricted airspace. So I've never heard that story. If there's some backing for that, I'd love to see it. But the implication that Commissioner Reynolds portrayed today was that there was some sort of bait and switch that happened during the referendum. And that's not true. I've never heard that from anybody. And I've looked back at records and I've never seen that.
I'm just going to throw out there, sir.
Yes.
This time should be used to present to us. I don't think we need to go ahead and combat what Commissioner Reynolds said.
Okay.
That this is not the time or the place. And I think that a lot of our commissioners do have other questions for you. So if you just want to finish answering Vice Chair Chapato's questions, we can go forward with our other questions. But I don't want this to be a he said, she said kind of combat. That's not what I'm here for today. So if you can just finish your couple thoughts.
And Mr. Chair, if I may interrupt at this point.
Vice Chair.
And Mr. McLaughlin, I didn't mean to put you on the spot at all.
That's all right.
These are just questions that I've been thinking about, and as the presentation was being made, I'm a writer, and so I have pages and pages of questions, as my fellow commissioners can attest to. But these are just questions that were popping into my mind, and I know all the commissioners here, well, at least I can speak for myself. I'm really concerned about the money going to the schools it's needed from this tax. I will agree with you on that. But these are just questions that are coming about due to this presentation. And I don't mean for you to just answer them now. If you need time, that's fine. Because to gather your thoughts so quickly when you have 20 people looking at you is very difficult.
Well, first, I'll apologize, Mr. Chair. I didn't mean I get a little animated. Just so you know, my family's been in New Mexico for almost 150 years. My dad was born in Hatch. I'm passionate about the spaceport, not because I love space, which I do love space, or technology, which I do, and I've been a business person. It's because what I see is the potential to change this county, this area. When I left 26 years ago, you could work at White Sands Missile Range or the university. When I came back, you could work at White Sands Missile Range or the university. Now you can work at the spaceport. So just a couple, I'll answer a few more of your questions. And on the Spaceport America Cup, part of the reason it was time to make a change is they wanted to do things, they wanted to go much higher, for example. That creates a bigger hazard area. We had some disagreements about how to safely host them going higher or having two-stage rockets. We couldn't quite come to agreement on that, and it also meant that that height would impinge parts of the White Sands restricted airspace, and White Sands wouldn't agree to that either. So they decided they needed to move on. I agree with you. We're sorry to see him go. It was a big thing for us Cruces, for us. We are working on something called the American Rocketry Challenge, which is a high school, middle school contest. It won't be nearly as big as the Cup. It will be a 1 or 2 day event out at the spaceport. But we are working on that, and that will happen just for a weekend, probably in the spring. The winners to that get to go to a national competition. It's a NASA-sponsored national competition, but the reason I actually like that one is because we're gonna try and draw in the high school students. Right now, there's only 3 or 4 high schools in the whole state that participate in this thing. So we're gonna work really hard to get all the outlying high schools participating in that. So you'll hear more about that. On the master plan, I can tell you we're about to release the master plan sometime in the next few weeks. The total amount spent on that was about $1 million, and that took place over the last 2 years. It's going to show a wide breadth of what can happen at the spaceport. It's not a master plan where we're going to follow it exactly. It's designed to show all the different sort of things we can do at the spaceport. And keeping in mind time, and I appreciate your comments, Mr. Chair. I'll stop there, and if there's any more questions. So,
thank you for answering those. I do have a couple questions that you were very proud of. You stated that when you were here, you could work at White Sands or the university. When you came back, you could work at White Sands or the university, but now you can work at Spaceport. And I think that's absolutely fantastic, and it's a great tagline. Some things that we've heard, and you have to understand, Commissioner Reynolds knows that I don't always agree with him every day. But I do have to say, when we do look at the money, I think most people in Doña County look at it as Doña County money. It came from every single person in Doña. We voted on it to build the spaceport. We were promised certain things, and we still expect those things to come to be. But since you're toting that line, by any chance, do you know how many New Mexicans Spaceport America employs?
well, the economic report showed 811. That's people who live here in New Mexico.
No, from New Mexico that haven't been brought in from California, Texas, or anywhere else in the United States.
Well, when Virgin Galactic moved here in the past, this goes back about, I think, 5 years, of the people they brought and of the people that were hired at the time, it was about 50-50 is the statistic I heard from them. So they brought in about half then, and so at one point they were up to around 300 people. So you could say maybe at that time it was 50%. They did have the layoff, since then we're down to that. But all those people are New Mexicans now. They all live here. Those are all the new people with the high-paying jobs that are helping support our economy.
Yes, of course, and I think that's really important to say. So how many people are currently employed at Spaceport?
For Virgin Galactic, I understand.
Just all together.
Are you talking, all I can do is go by the economic impact report of 2022. We don't survey our customers except when we do that economic impact report. So it would be difficult to say exactly.
So something that I would definitely recommend is, since it is taxpayer money that is funding this, that we maybe do survey and find out exactly how many New Mexicans, whether it's born and raised or here for 20 years, or how many individuals that were laid off from Virgin are being put back to work. I think that's also really important because a lot of people were laid off from Virgin America or Virgin Galactic, I apologize. And, you know, a lot of them chose to stay here and continue their lives here. And a lot of them had a really hard time finding new employment. So I would definitely like to say, since this is taxpayer money, and I think that's a better way of putting it, it is taxpayer money, not Virgin Galactic money. It's not Spaceport America money. It's not Doña County money. It is taxpayer money. And when we're looking at taxpayer money, as someone that ran for office, knowing that I had a huge responsibility to be accountable for taxpayer money, that is something that we should look at. And we need to start looking at the return. And we need to start looking at where it's going, how long it's going, and all that stuff. And I'm glad that we pointed out, and we've been talking about the money that is going to the Challenger Center and the money that's going to the public school system. But that tax ends in 2029. Is that correct?
That is when the bonds get paid off.
The bonds will be paid off in 2029. So that money to the school systems and to the Challenger Center will be ending in 2029.
I don't know that that's true. I think the tax is in perpetuity until it gets changed.
Until the county would do something, both counties would do something to make
Right.
sure that
Right.
Yeah. So my question to you then, does Spaceport America have any, do they plan on doing other things with this money? Do you guys, I mean, Spaceport is built, correct? Like it is built and you are leasing out land to private industry to come in and to continue the great work of Spaceport. But what the counties, right, the bi-county, and this is kind of something that we're talking about with, you know, cleaning up Chaparral too, right? And this was a huge undertaking, but personally, I think that Spaceport is built. It's been done. The project is complete. But what are your plans with this money? I mean, it does end out. The bonds are paid off in 2029. The schools rightfully know that. We actually invited them here today and they didn't come, but we invited them here to talk about it, to understand with us. But what are your plans? Do you guys have plans to continue the tax? And if so, why? I mean, and I'll frame it in this, and I think this is a better way to look at it. We, as a county, have done, since I've been here, one huge road project. I think it was like 13 or 18 huge road projects, and it cost us $13 million, okay? We've done 2 or 3 of those. 3. Thank you, Mr. Lopez. We've done 3 of those. The last one we did was $13 million, and that was huge for us. That was gigantic for us. And when we're looking at what $5 million a year in our GRT portion to Spaceport America can do for the Doña County people, we have to justify it. I have to know that we are making more than $5 million in returns from Spaceport America, because if not, I can put that money into sewer systems, water systems, and roads. So if you can help me understand exactly what your plans are, and I know that you have a board that deals with this as well, but what your plans are, and if you're going to be looking at continuing that taxation past 2029, and if so, can you please explain to me why?
Yeah. I'll try and give you a short answer too. I'll come back later, Mr. Chair, with something more detailed, so please let me know when I can do that. So let me back up just a moment and say our operations budget right now is about $12 to $13 million. About 65% of that comes from our customers, from Virgin Galactic and other customers. We get $4 million from the state in the general fund. So that's our operations budget. That's what we do day to day. What the tax is done, what the GRT goes to, and what we're restricted to is only capital improvements, right? So these are new roads or new sewer. I should point out, I think most of you have been out there. I know Scott has not been out there. I would love to have people out who haven't been. But we're like a little city, so we have our own sewer, we have our own electricity, our own roads. So we have these kind of expenses that a normal industrial park wouldn't have, because the municipality that the industrial park would be in would be taking care of their police and their fire and their roads and their electricity. We have to take care of all that. So we have a higher operating expense and maintenance expense than most. So in terms of what the money goes to, then we can only spend the money on capital improvements. And I wasn't here when the original statutes were passed, both the NMSA creating the authority and the one creating the tax district. But if you look at how it evolved, about 2/3 of the spaceport was paid for by the state, and about 1/3 was paid for by the county, right? And I think that was because we were getting the jobs here. So the state looked at it as yeah, we're going to help you build something up, but you get that, right? What we're doing with the money, the spaceport isn't built. We're actually 18,000 acres. So what's built is the gateway to the Space Center. That's what Virgin Galactic is in, which the spaceport owns, the state of New Mexico. We own. We have the runway. But there's no other roads. There's a lot of things out there in terms of being site ready, just like Santa Teresa. We have to put in roads. We have to put in utilities so we can keep attracting the customers, and that's what we're doing. The other thing we're trying to do is build up some of the more remote sites like the vertical launch area. We hope to announce a tenant in the vertical launch area in the next several weeks who's going to be doing vertical hops and tests and should be here for a long time. And I don't know how many jobs that is yet, but this is a good example of where we have to put in the roads and utilities to get them here, and then all of us get the return on the investment. So that is the overall plan. You'll see more of that in the master plan when that gets released in the next few weeks.
Okay, and the question on the continuing the tax past 2029.
It's not something I've thought about too much. I think that to be fair to the state, the counties should continue to contribute up to some point. What we're doing is we're competing with other states right now. So Texas created something called the Texas Space Commission. A whole bunch of money just went to the Borderplex to study how to improve aerospace, in the El Paso region, not up here. Arizona, last week, the governor, they signed off on something called the Arizona Space Commission. So space is growing so rapidly right now. In just a few years, in about 5 years, there will probably be a launch per day at Cape Canaveral. And most people think they launch 4 or 5 times a year. No, we're all the way up to a launch per day. So we're trying to capture some of that. And unfortunately, we haven't secured federal funding for that yet. So we're working to try and get grants and things from the federal government. But to compete, we need to keep improving the infrastructure.
And, thank you for saying that. And I do want to point something out as well with that. And I respect that mindset. But also there's the mindset of we have Santa Teresa down the road, and we haven't dumped nearly this much money into Santa Teresa, and they are in dire need of water, electricity, sewer, and infrastructure as well. But sir, I will tell you this, and this comes from a place of deeply wanting economic growth in Doña County. Those lots and those properties fly off the shelves without us putting money into it. We have not put anywhere close to this amount of money into it. So it's really painful to sit here and keep justifying this taxation. And I want to be very clear because our county constituents are hurting for basic necessities like water and sewer and roads. So I just want to put that out there on your radar, sir. But I'm a big fan of Spaceport America. I think that we are doing great work out there. But we need to understand that there needs to be other funding sources besides millions of dollars from Doña every year, because we have other things that we need to start focusing on as well. So I say that with deep appreciation for everything that you've been doing and what Spaceport has done, but also we need to start focusing on other things as well. So that's all I'm going to say as far as that goes.
If I can say one thing, Mr. Chair, the state has a tremendous amount of money right now from oil, and I would recommend that we tell them to keep spending it on the spaceport to get us to the level where we can support orbital launches and do the things. We are a catalyst not just for Las Cruces, but for the whole state to actually have a spaceport where people can go to space. This is an improvement for the whole region, and unfortunately the state needs to think a little harder about how to help us grow. We are in a competition. And we were visited twice this year by people from the Department of Defense about whether we could support orbital launches from that location. That's what we're looking at in terms of the future. So I would argue if the county doesn't want to help as much as they have, and of course everybody at the spaceport is thankful for that, we should be talking to the state a little more about the fact that they have quite a bit of oil money that can be invested.
Have you started those conversations?
Oh, yeah, we have an ICIP process. We got, I will admit though, we've got behind during COVID, during the investigation, during some things. They allowed us to finally hire a capital improvements manager, and we've been going very quickly getting things built. So we're ready for those kind of asks.
Awesome. And then I do hear Commissioner Sanchez coming in and off of the mic, so go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott, I think you may have hinted at the answer to this question, but I just wanted to find out, Spaceport America, it's a state agency, is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Commissioner.
I wanted to know if you can identify other state agencies that are funded by Doña GRT.
Mr. Commissioner, I maybe the Border Commission in some way through Santa Teresa, but I don't know of anything else directly. But again,
okay,
it's
that's
only for the
my point.
infrastructure, not for the operations.
Well, and I understand, right? And I think I can tell you there's a huge, there's a huge distrust that has come because of what the monies had been used and in the past. And understand that wasn't you, but look, I think it definitely helps shine a light on what the monies are there for. I think the other concern is exactly as my fellow commissioners have stated, is it's a state agency. We don't fund any other state agencies out of our GRT. And so, as you were saying, and I'm sure Doña County would be glad to pass a resolution asking the state to support you all with more money. But I notice here on the bill, on the Senate bill, was it 396, the agency analysis, you note that $3 million will be lost if the changes are made. $3 million in revenue will be lost if the changes are made as noted in the bill. But I don't understand, because in the bill, no changes are being designated until 2028. So can you help me understand where Spaceport America says that $3 million in revenue would be lost because of the changes in the bill?
Commissioner Sanchez, I'm not exactly sure. I thought, my understanding is that the bill became enacted immediately upon approval. So maybe the earliest would be July 1, not till 2028. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's my understanding that the bill was going to push or at least set a sunset for the GRT when the bonds are paid off.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Yes. But
okay, so, and that's what I see here in this analysis provided by Spaceport America to the legislature, is that $3 million in revenue would be lost in fiscal year 26, $3.5 million in fiscal year 27. So I'm just trying to understand, where are your projections coming from? Because I guess I don't understand how those capital dollars are going to reduce your revenues. And even then, I don't think they're even changing. But even if they were, where does the capital dollars, I guess, where are you seeing that you're going to lose $3 million in 1 year and 3.5 the next year? Because if that was the case, I think there needs to be some transparency to understand where, like I said, if there's a big a tenant that you're looking to come in and have that, I would love to have that discussion with you. But I know you're talking about a data center, which I don't know, I guess, is that where the money's coming from? Because I'm trying to figure out where's this money coming from and how Doña County is going to benefit. Because I think, as you mentioned, the GRT for construction benefits Sierra County. You talk about the people that live here, and indirectly, you said 800, not directly to the spaceport. You're talking other jobs in the hospitality industry and so on, which aren't necessarily engineering jobs. They are not high-paying jobs that you all are trying to say you're creating. So I'm trying to figure out can you tell me, where's this $3 million of revenue, which would be a huge boon, it sounds like, based off of the numbers you provided earlier to Spaceport America. Where's that money that is projected to be coming from that would be lost?
A couple of quick things, and then I can have my CFO answer that, if that's all right. The 811 jobs does include all the engineers and all the high-paying jobs. The 811 is the total number of jobs, direct, indirect, and induced. And when I say that Sierra County benefits from the construction, I shouldn't quite say it that way. They benefit from the GRT tax from the construction, since the construction happens at GRT. But materials come out of Las Cruces, contractors come out of Las Cruces, so both counties benefit from all that. And I'll let Mr. Art Trujillo answer the question about the $3 million.
So in regards to the revenues, there's two sources. One is for capital projects, which we're expecting to get some money from the tax board district. So it's a loss of that if that didn't occur. And the other is in our operating revenues. As we continue with construction, we had planned to lease facilities to new tenants. And so if we didn't do that, then that'd be a loss in those type of revenues. Not only the lease, but we also charge for utilities, user fees, flight tests. We just have a whole range of fees that we do charge, and so we estimated that over a period of 2 years, there would be losses. It would be amounts that we wouldn't be able to ever get if we didn't complete the construction.
Mr. Chair, I have a question or a comment, rather, no more questions, Scott, but rather a comment. I'm very much aware that through the Borderplex, a study has been launched to the tune of $1.3 million from Ms. Heather Wilson to see what future can be laid for a spaceport in Texas. And I'm thinking regionally. I'm not just thinking about Doña County, but I'm thinking regionally. I'm thinking of Doña County, El Paso County, and also our Mexican counterparts. Has a conversation been started with them? Maybe joining forces to bring more projects to this area, to bring more employment to this area, because we're not alone here. We're working as a region, and we must start thinking that way instead of just Doña County or El Paso County. So maybe speaking with our partners in El Paso and Borderplex, we have more airspace than they do. We have more land than they do. They may have a little bit more money, but if we can entice them to bring their projects into our area, I mean, it'd be a win-win for everybody, I think. So maybe just putting a bug in your ear regarding that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Of course.
Mr. Chair, just so you know, we have done that. We have an MOA with the Borderplex Alliance, and we had a whole bunch of people out from El Paso, including El Paso County Commissioner, out to the spaceport in December. It was specifically for those reasons, because it is a regional. Anything good for the region is going to be good for all of us. So we are continuing that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sanchez, was that everything?
I just wanted to make note, and just for the rest of the board members or the commission, that the Spaceport Authority, or at least the Tax District Board, I think I did vote against it, but did approve capital funds to be used for capital projects already. So I guess monies are already being spent. They are being invested. And so I guess I'm a little concerned with some of the analysis that's provided by Spaceport America to the legislature. I will say that, and I apologize if I'm a little salty at the moment. I think the comment that this was not Doña County money really rubbed me the wrong way. So, Mr. McLaughlin, I'm sorry if the way that I've approached this seems that way, but I do feel like why I'm so passionate about the fact that we have so many communities in need, and I think we look across the entire county, and as the chairman noted about water issues, sewer issues, flood improvements, roads, emergency response, all of these things are things that that we hear from our constituents every day. And so when we're trying to figure out how do we do what's best for the county, and to say that this money is obviously, yes, it is designated for Spaceport, but my frustration very much comes that it's not Doña County taxpayer money that we could use to bring those services. I know, you're doing your duty as the director of Spaceport America, but please understand where I'm here to serve the people of Doña County. So that's where I think my frustration comes in, because I want to do what's best for our people. And it includes bringing in jobs. You're absolutely right. But I don't see where in the future Doña County, obviously it's in Sierra County, but where we play a role and how we play a role in the Santa Teresa area through tax incentives and things like that, those are things that we can do that still allow us to bring in other monies to the county to bring in jobs. And so I think we need to really look at this, because you said you haven't looked at this long term. We need to have that discussion long term. I think the county needs to have that discussion with NMFA as well, so that we make sure that we're good with our borrower or our lender, excuse me. But we need to figure out how we end this tax in a responsible way, so that we can continue to find ways to, in my mind, that we find other ways that we can continue to grow in Doña County. Because to me, this was never, I guess I would put it out to the voters and ask them if when they voted on this, did they think this was going to be in perpetuity, they were going to be funding this state agency? And I think the answer would be no. And so we need to have those discussions and figuring out how we exit this and when the bonds are paid off. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anything else, commissioners?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Real quick. I was just saying, maybe we do need to look into having a resolution to the governor stating, the support and them start funding the state agency through the state. So maybe we can look at that. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am, it does. We can
Thank
look
you.
at that for sure. And just a final note as well, because I was on your website trying to find your meeting minutes for the taxation board, and your minutes are not up to date. So just FYI.
So the tax district they're a separate body corporate, so politics. So we're working with them. We've talked to the chair, and if they will allow, we will start putting their minutes on our website so they're on one place. And I believe you're right, some of our other board minutes are behind, so I apologize for that.
Yes, thank you so much. And just with that being said as well, I think it would be beneficial. So we do have a lot of other partners, such as yourself, kind of quasi-governmental agencies, whether it's the Public Housing Authority or something, or really anything. What I would definitely welcome as chair, and I'm sure the rest of the board would definitely welcome this if you want to join us maybe quarterly or once every 6 months, give us updates on your projects, what you're working on, how things are going. And that way we can kind of continue the conversations that we're having. I know that we do have 2 board members on the taxation board, but definitely not on the board of directors, so we're not getting regular updates from you. So I would definitely recommend and welcome you to visit us. We can definitely give you a little agenda item. You can present on what you're working on, anything like that. And we'll definitely get the county administration office to reach out to you to schedule those.
Okay, I'd be happy to do that. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you have a question, sir, that's perfectly fine. If you'll just join me at the podium, please.
Good afternoon again.
Yes, sir.
I did not have any, this was way out of my league. Well, one question when we were looking at the numbers and said that funding does go back to our schools. What I want to know, and one question that I have is that funding that goes to the school comes first to the county, then the county disperses that money to the schools, or the Spaceport gives that money directly to the schools?
Straight out of the bond, I believe.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
We
all the
pay the
question.
schools, or does Spaceport pay the schools out of that portion of
Actually,
GRT?
the way the bond works is we collect 0.25% of the bond. And from that 0.25%, we take 75% of those proceeds and go toward paying the bond. The other 25%, according to the state statute, we are allowed to use for any purposes that support the Spaceport mission. What we chose to do, 2009 timeframe, we chose to actually use that money to fund STEM projects at the schools. So Hatch School, Gaston schools, Las Cruces schools, we provide them with 25% of what we collect on a yearly basis to fund STEM projects at the schools, which we believe is a way of supporting the Spaceport and scientific mission of the spaceport.
Okay.
Okay, we have the flexibility, though, as a board, to change that funding anytime. That's funding we totally control. Because it's beneficial to our students throughout the whole county, I think that it's important that we continue in some way to try to provide that support for them, because it does a lot. And so that's one of the biggest hurdles we have for doing anything with this tax, is trying to figure out how to continue to support the schools if we don't have this tax. And hopefully, the anti-donation bill will pass, and we'll have some other avenues that we can use to continue that support.
Okay. The reason for my question is I reached out to Ms. Flores, Ms. Salazar. She's a board chair for the GISD. And I asked her, what percentage, or if any, do you get from the county, from the budget? What percentage of the budget goes to you from the county? And she says absolutely 0%. So I think we need a little bit clarification is, do we, as a county, give money to the GISD, or do we not?
Sir, I can answer that really quickly. We give quarterly payments to the public school districts through that, through the spaceport tax.
Through the spaceport tax, okay. So
Quarterly payments. But as far as like an overall, do we fund public schools? No, sir, that is done through taxes.
that percentage does come from the county, so there was
That
there's
portion
an
does.
incorrect, yeah, so it was an incorrect answer that she gave.
But if she's not exactly incorrect, because it is part of that taxation revenue stream. So it's not like Doña County is out of our budget, we're giving them money. It's out of that tax from the bond.
Okay,
that is being
thank you for
provided.
clarifying that.
Yes, sir, of course.
Mr.
Chair and commissioners.
Yes.
While that discussion was going on, Lucio was able to verify that in FY23, about 1.2 million was provided to GISD.
So there you go.
Pardon me, if I may, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
would you repeat that, Jonathan? I didn't quite get that. Thank you.
Of course, Commissioner and Vice Chair Chaparro, in FY 2023, Lucio was able to verify that we reverted about $1.2 million to GISD, and it's anticipated that for this upcoming, or for the succeeding fiscal year, is going to be about 1.4 million.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Sanchez.
Would it at all be possible to have management, county management, to possibly look at whether, and I don't know whether this bill will pass, but regardless of that, is it possible for us to take a look and see how, whether it's a referendum, resolution, what would it take for us to sunset that GRT? And I believe that probably have some discussions with NMFA would probably be part of it, but I'd like for them to get some options available for us if that's the direction we'd possibly like to go in the future.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. If I see three heads nodding in that same direction, I'll get the team and we'll start marching in that way. All right, we'll start moving that direction. Thank you for the feedback, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on, we do have discussion item number 4, which is Chaparral Otero discussion, which is very broad and very broad.
It is. So good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. Stephen Lopez, Assistant County Manager, presenting on this topic, though, as you will see here on the slides, I'm going to rapidly point over to Commissioner Reynolds on some of these because this is his district. Chaparral, as you all know, is a large unincorporated community. It is spanning both Doña County and Otero County, as previous commenters today have noted. Commissioner Reynolds has been approached asking if Doña County would consider taking over the entire populated area of Chaparral. Need to clarify that. Just Chaparral, not all of Otero County, but the Chaparral area of Otero County.
It's not funny.
If Otero County does agree.
Well, I mean, we could be 32 strong instead of 33 if we wanted to go in that direction.
We would have to reprint all that marketing material,
That's
Commissioner
right.
Sanchez. It will not work.
That's right.
So in front of you now on the slide is kind of an aerial view of Chaparral, and the population center is right there in the middle. You can see there's a hard line running from left to right where the population really kind of stops. That is the state line between New Mexico and Texas. You'll also notice that there is a highlighted area, a yellow circle in the upper right-hand corner. That is the the Otero detention facility that is used for immigration detainees under contract between the federal government and Otero County. I highlight that just as part of the discussion as we'll be moving through. So here's what it looks like when we actually pull off the aerial view and just kind of show that map view and highlight some key areas. You can see Fort Bliss is in the gray, and that is area that the U.S. military has exclusive control over. And then you can see in the light green to the left is Organ Mountain and Desert Peaks. No development can happen in that area. So you can see that the potential for development really does land almost equally on what is currently Doña County and the Otero County sides. And then we are pretty much going to be landlocked in that area between Fort Bliss, Organ Mountain, Desert Peaks, and the state of Texas. Here's a slightly closer view showing where the county line splits. For those of you who are familiar with the Chaparral area, it is actually called County Line Road, and it's quite conveniently named. Towards the top of the populated area, you'll notice the high school, the elementary school, and Doña Community College campuses, and then that line splits straight down. You can see also in the upper right-hand corner is still that Otero detention area. Above the line there on the screen at the top, that is Fort Bliss once again, and that's where development again stops. Here is what the Otero County map looks like, and you can see that the Chaparral area is in the very far low left. Chaparral is population-wise very remotely located from the rest of the populated areas of Otero County because of White Sands Missile Range and Fort Bliss. And again, there's that yellow area that's drawn out or circled there that shows where the Otero detention facility is located. So for you to discuss today and to give us, the administration, some direction, we are really looking for, is this something that the residents of Chaparral want for Doña County to take over? If so, there is a petition process typically involved in annexations for municipalities. Not so much for county acquisition of property, but I think it really does speak to the needs to give the people who would be impacted a right to have some kind of voice, so that we know for sure, is this something that they would be interested in? And then at the same time, is this something that Doña County wants? We would be taking on responsibility for almost double the population that we currently are responsible for in Chaparral. And is this something that Otero County wants? If this is not something Otero County wants, we probably need to know that early in the discussion process. If, assuming all of the above are yes, then what are the next steps and what would the timeline be for such a change? And do we limit it just to where the population is in Chaparral, or do we take advantage of the opportunity to straighten up our county line that currently has a little jog up in Vice Chair Chapato's district, and just kind of come straight down that line and true up our eastern boundary of the county? So with that, I happily will take any questions, or more than likely hand it over to Commissioner Reynolds to answer any questions.
And Mr. Chair, if we can just go back to page number 4, because I took a little break and I missed that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
So who are we in contact with in Otero.
Okay, well, we have a resident of Chaparral here, who's at Ray. He's been holding meetings down in Chaparral at once a month. And in that meetings, we have the county commissioner from Otero County and myself have been attending for about 2.5 to 3 years. And each month that we meet, we talk about issues on both Otero and Doña County. And Ray has been kind enough to keep that going for the last 6 or 8 months. And I appreciate you doing that. The question, that's the first answer. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman.
Who are we talking? So we're talking with the commissioner in Otero, and he
has offered to have a meeting between his county manager, his legal, our county manager, and me and our legal, just to discuss the possibilities and what the options are.
Gotcha. Okay. Vice Chair.
Another point might be worth noting is that the drive from Alamogordo down to Chaparral is about 60 minutes. From here down there, it's about 35 or 40 minutes.
Commissioner, depends on who drives.
I'm sorry?
Said it depends on who drives. I'll invite you to come with.
That is true. Vice Chair can get to Hobbs, New Mexico very quickly.
Mr. Chairman, I have some comments. It's Mr. Velarde, am I correct? Mr. Vasquez, thank you. I understand that community feeling and having your community divided into 2 counties must be really taxing. I go to Otero County often, and I've come back around the other way to go to El Paso, and to me, the difference between Doña County and Otero County was stark. The infrastructure is missing, development is missing, retail shops are missing, and then you get to the Doña side, and then you have the gorditas and the churches and, you know, the places where you can stop and eat. You have some infrastructure there and some residents there. But I guess my question to staff, wouldn't that be work for the legislature to redraw our county lines? I mean, I don't think, we can probably pass a resolution, but we don't have much teeth.
Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, that is exactly one of the questions we would need to have answered by our legal counsel. We have not spent time on this issue yet, but we are happy to do so and get those answers if this is a direction that the board wants us to look into deeper. With that being said, I know that Commissioner Reynolds has done some of the legal research on what it takes.
Thank you, Vice Chair, Assistant County Manager Lopez. Those are very good questions, Commissioner Chaparro. There is a state statute 433 that actually covers annexation of one county to another county. And it's kind of like there's several ways it can happen, but we still need to do more research, and Carrie and I need to work on that. But one of the things that you will probably understand is that when counties go bankrupt, the state takes over the county. And as a part of the correction for that problem is that they offer the other counties opportunities to annex part of the county that went bankrupt. So that's one method to do it. Another method, if I understand what I've read in the state statutes, is that the county commissioners from each county can get together and redraw the boundaries. And then I don't know if it is something that's finalized by the counties, but it may have to go to legislation, but at least we can initiate the process as another way to do it. Those are the only 2 that I'm aware of and that I remember reading in State Statute 433. But does it take something, the legislators in the state to do it? It may. They may have to be the only ones that can do it, so I have to do more research. But I do know it's possible. Something else I might point out is looking at the economic development that's going to be required there because of 404 being a 4-lane highway and 213, which is War Road, turning into a 4-lane highway and being a bypass that's going to save roughly 60 minutes off of the time to get around El Paso. Development's going to happen at least on the Doña County side and also on 54. They're already bringing in, they're already building an 800,000 square foot facility at the intersection of 54 in Texas as it is right now. And that's still going to be, that's on the Texas side, but it's right at 54 where it comes into New Mexico. And they're going to need housing, places to shop and things like that. And then there's a development from the El Paso side that's coming right up to the border in Texas and New Mexico as well. So things are going to change there. The question is Otero County capable of building the infrastructure necessary to serve those needs, or are we better able to do that? And I think that's a question we can at least have a conversation about. But there's nothing going to happen until this board is all on board with making a change. But at least we can explore it. There are two other avenues that are being explored by our representative. She's looking into the possibility of Chaparral becoming its own county. It's one option, and also the possibility of Chaparral becoming an incorporated city. The challenge with becoming an incorporated city in New Mexico is you're not allowed to have an incorporated city cross two county boundaries. So they would have to incorporate as two separate cities. So there's some limitations to what they're trying to accomplish that we can hopefully solve or be a part of the solution by actually bringing them into either our county or pushing them into Otero County. And I'm not in favor of either one specifically, but I think it's worth looking at for the residents and for what we're trying to do in development down there to figure out where our future is going to be with Chaparral. That's all.
Okay, so two questions, if not two thoughts. It can be a thought and a question, right? Okay, yeah, we're going to go with it. So, one, did anyone communicate to Otero County that, I don't know, this was on the work session today? Or are they going to tune in live and see that we're having a conversation about annexing
That's my
Chaparral?
thoughts too. If I heard we were being carved up in their meeting, I wouldn't be too thrilled. So
Yeah. Okay. So that was a thought and a question. We'll go with that. And then my second thought / question is yes, I think that the Board of County Commissioners can definitely get involved with stuff like this, but also I think it should go to the constituents of Doña County, because not only is it, and I mean no offense whatsoever in these comments, but yes, Chaparral is underserved, both in Doña and on the Otero side of the county, but so are other colonias and other rural areas of Doña County, which are currently underserved and still underserved, and there's no plans or funding in place to get them the necessities needed. So I think also that's a larger conversation with the broader scope of what Doña County citizens want, what our constituents want, that we are currently not meeting the expectations of service and infrastructure of. So as of right now, I mean, I understand what the goals are, Commissioner, but I can't even get sewer and water to some of my districts, let alone bringing in another huge population and land mass and promising them that we can bring them infrastructure and the things that they are missing, when I hate to say it, some of our own areas are still missing it now, and they've been missing it for hundreds of years. So I applaud the conversation. I think that there's a lot of research that needs to be done on that, but I can't make promises to people in Chaparral on the Otero side when I can't even make those promises to the current residents in Doña County. So I can't, I apologize, I just can't see this going forward.
Mr. Chairman?
Vice Chair.
So I was thinking along the same lines as the chair is thinking. So my questions were, what is the population of Otero County as compared to Doña County in the Chaparral area? Landmass, square miles in Otero County and Doña County as to Chaparral. And I'd also, and I'm sure Mr. Macias or Mr. Lopez jump in here, but I think I have 5 colonias in my district that need very rapid attention. And I know some folks are even without water there.
Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, that is correct, yes.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I'll let, Go ahead, Commissioner Sanchez.
I think well, I'm not necessarily against it because I think we always run into the challenge when when we look at the residents of Chaparral, and maybe Mr. Lopez can help me understand this, but given that it straddles both counties, the response, how is the response handled for emergency services, whether that's law enforcement or fire or emergency services?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sanchez, we do have active mutual aid agreements to allow our personnel to go into Otero County and assist. And on occasion, the same thing happens, particularly on the Sheriff's Department side, where Otero County deputies will sometimes come over and assist Doña County Sheriff's officers in the Chaparral area.
Do we ever have any concerns or delays? Because if you're on the Otero County side, they're having to contact Otero County versus coming to Doña County in terms of emergency response, or does that cause any issues for our team?
I'm not aware of any specific delays because of providing mutual aid, if that's what you're asking. The dispatch centers do work together to be able to hand calls back and forth. I am aware that does happen fairly seamlessly. We do have challenges right now, though, with radio systems because we have moved our agencies over to the state 700 megahertz system, and Otero County has declined that opportunity thus far. It's not impossible. Our radios do have their channels in them, and so our deputies are able to switch over to their channels, but then that doesn't mean that they lose contact with our dispatch center.
Okay, thank you. And no, that also answers my question, because I think that was one of my concerns is, because of the challenge of the community straddling both counties, I didn't know, if that caused us challenges because of that. And, from that perspective, I think it would make somewhat of a sense that, that was all under one umbrella, so to speak, or under one county. But I do have some serious concerns with potential need for funding, because I can't speak for the Otero County side, but I do believe we've put in quite a bit of infrastructure on the Doña County side. And so for us to want to take that over, I think there would be some serious economic commitment for us to want to do that. And that brings me pause because of the concerns that I think the vice chair just brought up, where we have the areas that we're trying to continue to find ways that we serve those in need. So like I said, I'm not against it, but I'm not sure that this should be I don't know if this should be a priority for us to be expending significant resources on until, maybe there's some serious discussions with Otero County that's what they want to do. But even then, I think we need to do this with eyes wide open.
Chair.
Yes, Mr. Macias.
Chair and Commissioner Sanchez, I think one thing that should be noted that is relevant for this conversation is, as ACM Lopez outlined, typically, no, there's not an issue with service, but there have been a couple of times, because Otero operates a volunteer firefighting service, if I'm not mistaken, that perhaps they're not able to get to the calls, and those are where they roll over, and they may cause a strain or an automatic or mutual aid call out to our fire station in the community, which may or may not be en route elsewhere in the community. So that's something to consider. The other thing that you should be aware of when we were having capital outlay discussions with Rep. Sarah Silva is that she is actively supporting a capital outlay request, and Commissioner Reynolds may speak more to this in terms of a consolidated county facility out on the Otero side that was the vision to provide a formal firehouse for staff operation, as well as some version of an ACO and other county services that they're sorely lacking in that community. For context, it's so far from the current county seat in Otero, which is currently Alamogordo, that they do tend to be out there, that 60-minute drive, depending on whose vehicle you're in. And last but not least, one point for consideration is any infrastructure that is invested within these county boundary lines would technically transfer to whatever would be in the future, whether it's an incorporated cities, brought back into another county, or whatever configuration they're in, any investments made today up until that point would have to also go to that newly formed entity as well.
Thank you, Mr. Macias. And just wondering, I think as you mentioned that capital outlay money for a new facility, has there been discussions with our fire and emergency response and our teams when with that plan? Because I know we dedicated funding for the station there in Chaparral, and so I feel like there's some concern there for us to put in money only for something else to be done in that area. You know, I'm not necessarily against it, and I understand the goal, but I'm just wondering if our county team was consulted with before that project was discussed.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sanchez, I was made aware of it for the first time by Chief Cherry. So he was aware of the discussion. And in fact, I do believe there was some discussion about why would they be putting a $10 million facility in for volunteers versus a paid established fire department already in the area that we are operating and funding. So I know he was aware of it. Whether he was consulted or not, the impression I received from him was he was not consulted. And he would have preferred that money be on the Doña County side because we do have a fully staffed station. But that is, again, just my perception of a brief conversation that I had with him.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. And I just, the reason I bring it up is because I feel like with respect to our representative in that area, I don't understand where some of the discussions have been had. Maybe they're with the community and that's great. But I wish that our legislators would be open to having discussions with our county staff before they start dedicated funds to something that might be that may not be, you know, in the best interest of the community, or there's a potential better solution. You know, but that's neither here nor there. But thank you for that. I appreciate it. I've heard about it, but didn't understand. And I think I have some real concerns about, you know, even the concerns of Chaparral to quote unquote be a county or even become their own municipality, because I think we've seen that they need to have a economic base to be able to have that. And we've gone through that with Santa Teresa. I know that's not the specific reason why they were rejected. But you know, I think having that, I think there's certain guidelines that we're jumping the fence on, or at least people are maybe jumping the you know, steps here before they get that far. So I appreciate the discussion, and thank you so much for answering the questions.
And Chair and Commissioner Reynolds, Commissioner Sanchez, I should say, the only other thing to share for context is that in early discussions with Rep. Silva, we had talked about a potential joint or shared response with that building to avoid the duplication of efforts, especially given the active age or the current age of the Doña facility for fire.
Awesome.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Gameros.
So I just wanted to say that I share the same sentiments as Commissioner Sanchez has. If it was different at this moment where the constituents of my district and the other districts were not having the issues with, you know, the water, wastewater, and our gas and internet, us trying to provide that for them, and, you know, we're not able to provide that right now. My concern is if we're struggling to do that, we're going to struggle even more bringing in other constituents. And, you know, I feel for them. I would love to help them, but I mean, I don't know, I guess having their board talk to our manager and, you know, maybe they can get some tools in their toolkit. You know, maybe that's what they might need in order to help out the constituents in looking for other types of funding. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have one public comment. Come on up.
Okay. says, this is crazy again. I was only here to talk about the cleanups. It is true that Gatsi puts you in the right place at the right time. I did not know we were going to have this good discussion. But the discussions we had been talking about in our community meetings, which is second Monday of the month at 6 o'clock at the Betty McKnight Center. And I invite the whole commission to go out there. I invite Mr. Andrews, Mr. Macias to go out there and see if to appreciate what we do out there. Well, there were three ideas that we were proposing out there. One was becoming our own county, becoming a municipality, or staying just as we are within 2 counties. This is the first time I heard about being annexed. So, like the commissioner saying, might be these people might be jumping the gun. We're not, to tell you the truth. What we're doing and what I'm doing is trying to get all the information that we have to get the right information, and put this to a vote where the people of Chaparral can decide what they want. I think that the fair has to be decided by the people of Chaparral if they want to do this or not. Whichever avenue they want to take, it has to be the people of Chaparral. After that, it has to be, if they decide, okay, we're going to want to be annexed by Doña Ana and get the whole area being Doña Ana, then okay, Doña Ana would come in and they would have to say in this after we have to say first, because all the issues that we have over there in Chaparral is because either Boteros, like I say, it's too far away for them to go out there and do any kind of business, as you well know. A lot of people in Chaparral, they're either undocumented or they just don't have the time to go all the way out to Alamogordo, so because they cannot cross that border checkpoint. So that's one of the biggest reasons that we're kind of considering this. Another thing is Chaparral, we have to come. It's not the big commute, 30 minutes, but either way, how many of those people do you see from Chaparral here in your commissioners meeting? Hardly ever. So those are the options that we are trying to propose out there. So we are getting all the information. One of the first steps that we did ask from Representative Silva to get that survey done. And from there, that survey, whatever information we get from that study, we'll go from there. And it's only when that study comes in, then we'll take the next decision. But it is kind of a tricky situation that we have there in Chaparral. But I'd just like to ask you to kind of consider all the options instead of just one of this one. I don't know if you knew about the other options, but those are the options that we are considering. Either becoming our own county, becoming a municipality, or staying the same as we are. So this would be a fourth option. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just a real quick comment. Mr. Vasquez, thank you so much for reminding us in a wonderful way that it's your decision to make. And this may be premature from our regard to address something that the people of Chaparral need to decide for themselves, instead of, coming here and being told what to do. If you have your meetings and you tell us what you would like, regardless of what that is. So thank you for reminding us of that. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Ready to move on, commissioners? Okay. Thank you again. And we do have one more discussion topic, which is item number 5, which is discussion about whether the county should investigate a one-time salary adjustment for employees who are eligible to retire and elect to do so as part of an incentive program. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. Christina Holman with HR. Want to go over some information for the topic number 5 on discussion about whether the county should investigate the one-time incentive salary adjustment. So management has been looking at a retirement incentive program, especially with all our new systems that have been gained countywide. It gives us the opportunity to revisit how we do a lot of things. Also gives the departments the ability to look at career laddering, the opportunity to realign how we do business without a morale issue. So what we did is we determined who may be eligible based on PERA, or the Public Employee Retirement Association of New Mexico's retirement eligibility. So there's two different tiers with PERA. One is Tier 1. If a individual was hired for the first time on or before June 30th of 2013, that is with any PERA-affiliated employer, not just Doña County. Also, as long as contributions remained on the account as of June 30th, so if an employee left their employer and left their funds with PERA, then they would still remain under Tier 1. If they were to withdraw their funds, they would then fall under the next tier category. Vesting with PERA is 5 years. With the county, we have 3 different plans. Municipal Plan 3, which is our general population. Police Plan 5, which is our sworn law enforcement, and Fire Plan 5, which is our sworn firefighters. For normal retirement, under Municipal Plan 3 would be at any age as long as they have 25 years or more of service credit, or age plus years of service beginning at age 60. For our Police Plan 5 and Fire Plan 5, they are eligible to retire after 20 years of service credit at any age, and also based on age and years of service, also beginning at 60. If an individual fell under Tier 2, that would be for anyone hired for the first time on or after July 1st, 2013, or for those individuals hired prior to that date that withdrew their funds and came back to a PERA employer. Vesting is the same as Tier 1 at 5 years for the same 3 plans. Normal retirement then changes when they become eligible. Municipal Plan 3 would be the rule of 85, where the employee's age plus their years of service credit would have to equal 85, or they would then be eligible at age 65 with at least 5 years of service credit. Police Plan 5 and Fire Plan 5 increased from 20 to 25 years of service credit any age, and then also would be eligible at age 60 with 5 years service credit. So based on PERA's retirement eligibility rules, we then looked at the county's employees to see who may be eligible based on these 2 different tiers. And we did estimate around 66 employees that may be eligible for the remaining of this calendar year. As you'll see on the screen here, a majority of them would be eligible in July. Some of those are eligible now, but we were looking at beginning of the next fiscal year. As you'll see, it does dwindle down a little bit. Starting with August, we have 4 that would be estimated to be eligible. September and October would be 1 for each of those months. And then as of right now, it's estimated at 0 that would be eligible for November and December. The incentive program that is being looked at would be either having a salary adjustment of either a 3 months of salary, 6 months of salary, 9, and also 12 months of salary. With these options, we did look at the budget impact for fiscal 26, and also looking at the remaining of the calendar year based on the estimated 66 employees. Now, with the estimation of the 66, this does not include anyone that had other para-service with another employer outside of the county, or if they had any service with the Education Retirement Board, for example, NMSU or any of the education companies. So with the fiscal budget impact, if a 12-month of salary would be to be received as a salary adjustment, the approximate cost is $4.97 million. 9 months of salary would approximately cost $3.72 million. 6 months would cost approximately $2.49 million, and 3 months of salary would cost approximately $1.24 million. We also looked at savings on salary savings, including benefits, if the position was to remain vacant for either 3 or 6 months. For 3 months, the salary savings would include approximately $1.2 million. In 6 months, vacant would approximately be 3.45 million. It would also be recommended that the position stay vacant for at least 3 months. If it was a critical position, then it would be a possibility to look at a temporary assignment to be added during that vacancy. If a retirement incentive program is established, we would look at having a deployee let us know possibly by July 1 with the retirement date of September 1st. Then they would be eligible for the incentive if this program was to be established. And I stand for any questions.
Really quickly, on the 3-month savings, you said 1.2. Is it 1.7 though?
1.7, yes,
Okay,
sorry.
thank you.
1.72.
I appreciate that. I was like, Okay, commissioners, any comments or questions? And great job presenting, so thank you for joining us today.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Reynolds.
a quick question. So what is the motivation for even considering this? I may have missed that. You may have said it before when I walked out.
With the systems, the different ERP system that we have are now using, there's other new systems within the countywide that employees are now using in different departments. So with that, that's where we're looking at trying to realign how the business or how the county's doing business with those new systems.
Okay. And so if these people do take the retirement plan that we offer them, let's say we give somebody 9 months, are we going to leave the job open for 9 months? Or are we trying to recruit and replace it in, say, 3 months?
It would be either in 3 or 6 months to recruit.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to figure out where the savings is, and I'm trying to figure out what I would say to somebody to say, look, would you consider the 12-month? Would you consider the 3-month or the 9-month? And I mean, I know what would motivate them to do it. If I give them 12 months of salary, they can retire early. That's great. But how does it come back to us? I'm confused. That's all.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I can answer part of that for you, if I may. So the benefit to the county is if, for example, the commissioners were to say, you know what, let's go ahead and offer a 6-month buyout. If we keep the positions open for 6 months, we actually end up saving more than we spend for that 6-month buyout, even though it's the exact same time period. The difference that we're capturing that savings is we're not paying out benefits during that time. So this is a way for us to allow employees to be incentivized to retire and us, the county, to capture some savings. So that 6-month, we're looking at a potential savings of close to $1 million in the budget.
Yeah, and this is something I've had experience in other places. I've seen work really well for a lot of reasons, even from a morale standpoint as well.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Vice Chair.
I have a question. And so will HR be notifying the employees that are eligible for this, or how do you plan on doing this? Hey, like, for example, Susie, because she's here. Susie, you're eligible to retire in 5 months. Goodbye. We'll throw some money at you, but you need to leave. Is that, I mean, that's far-fetched, of course, a far-fetched example, but since she's here, I'm picking on her, and it's not personal, Susie.
If this was something that was established, we would need to create the guidelines, and then once that was created, then send out a notification to the employees. So then if they were wanting to retire, then they would notify HR, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, of course, Commissioner.
so looking at this with the county staff and operations, you know, if they were to wait those 6 to 12 months to hire a person to fill that position, would they be able to do that, you know, and not put burden on another employee or employees? Let's say in one department, you have 5 that choose to retire early. Now you've got 5 that are going to want to go, they choose a 12-month program. And you have to have that position open for those 12 months to recoup that money. But it's not going to be a possibility. So, you know, I think that needs to be looked at as well, right?
Yes, we can definitely take a look at that.
Can you do me a favor? Can you go back, I think, 2 slides? One more, actually. Okay, yeah. So I know that this is just like an informational kind of presentation, and I appreciate the information, but I think it does. I'm not against it by any means because I think it has some really great benefits to the county. I can see the benefits. I understand the financial and impact to the county and what that could be, but I do also believe that as we're seeing now, we've had several very high level positions become vacant recently and remain vacant for way too long. And that is not that we're not recruiting right. You know, I believe that Doña County is a great place to live, work, and play and all that great stuff. But I just don't want to get into a place where we're not ready for those turnovers to happen, where maybe we're not ready to lose those valued employees that we're going to offer it to. And if we offer it to one that's ready to retire in July or August, we have to offer it to all of them. And whether they are a director level position or one of our key staff members that if we lose, we're going to crash and burn type of mentality, that does scare me. So I'm not against this, but what I do need to see is how we create pathways forward that we don't put ourselves in a situation where we are losing a critical person, because let me tell you, I think about retiring all the time and it excites me. And if I was given the opportunity to leave 6 months earlier, I would probably always say yes and jump up and down. But also, before you answer, another thing with that is that we need to make sure that we are making the proper, and we've talked about this, we talked about it when we were doing interviews for county management. We talked about this during our strategic plan. We need to make sure that we as a county are doing proper planning for who's on first, what's on second, who's coming down the pipelines, who we have, where we can go. You know, we need to make sure that we're succession planning for all these key roles. We're without a fire chief right now, and we have an interim, and he's amazing. And you know, we're looking at these things on a regular basis now. So I like this because this excites me, and I think it's a great opportunity to give back to those that have given us 20, 25, 30 years of their life. I think this is something, it gave me a little chill actually saying that out loud. But it gives back, but I do worry that we need to make sure that we have every single thing in place, ready to go, so that when you guys flip that switch, because once we flip the switch, you can't unflip the switch. That is one of those switches that is kind of there. So yeah, that's kind of my only concern, and I think it's a planning concern. It's nothing that, yeah. So welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. Ashley Zuniga, Assistant Director with HR. Chair, Commissioners, just to answer some of your questions, it would absolutely have to be on a case-by-case basis, and we would do a lot of planning behind the scenes to make sure that if there is an opportunity for somebody to take advantage of this, then we're looking at every possible scenario, which is where, you know, the career ladders and the temporary assignments, extra duties, to make sure that we do have that succession planning. We wouldn't pull, you know, jump ahead of anything on this. We would make sure that we take into consideration everything when planning this. So I do think that there are definitely, to share your sentiments, I understand that there are some positions that we do have vacant. But as you also mentioned, we also have people filling in on in those positions that maybe would not have had the opportunity otherwise. So it's a great opportunity, but we will do a lot of planning on the back end.
Awesome, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Reynolds.
Ashley, If someone retires and we give them, say, 12 months, do we also pay their para for that 12 months?
It would not go against their para since it would be a one-time lump sum payment.
Okay, so that would be up to them to contribute to the para independently. No, they wouldn't have that ability?
They wouldn't be able to contribute at all to para based on that one-time payment.
That's probably the only thing that would make me look at it and go, you know, maybe I want to stay a little bit longer and build that para up a little bit more. That's all. But thank you.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Lucio Luttrell, Budget and Research Officer. The Budget Office would be working closely with HR on this so that when we look at funding options for any incentive payouts, we're not solely rely on salary savings from that specific position. So we'll be looking at different options, whether we go to reserves, salary savings from other areas, and it would be on a case-by-case basis. But as we are planning this out, we will work closely with HR.
And Mr. Chair, I just had another thought, not specifically a question, but maybe taking into account people that are assigned to other duties, because I've had to do that and I didn't like it.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I don't know if we gave you direction or not just now. I don't know if you even can deduce anything from these comments, but good luck figuring that one out, Scott.
And just as a reminder, we want to do this to make sure, one, you're all informed of what we're doing, because we're working fast and the team is, wow, they're doing so much. I can't even keep track of everything. So we want to share all these with you, and we know we have long meetings. We know we have a retreat coming up, but we want you all to be informed so when we do show up on board meeting day, you all know where we're coming from, and we will dig in. We'll unify around the feedback we've received today for all 5 of these items and be ready to hit the ground running.
Awesome. Anything else, commissioners? Anything else from staff? Okay. With that being said, I think we're kind of wrapping it up, right? Maybe. Okay, well, everyone, the time is 4:13 p.m., and I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this work session of the Doña County Board of County Commissioners.